we'll start with airport. Line item 0001 wages. Department request 6,043. If anyone has any questions or comments or concerns on that, just
This year we working with Public Works and taking a look at that. We actually were able to reduce some of the hours current to that.
okay.
Based on prior years. So I reduced Public Works operator by a third. Some of them.
You have that number. What the total amount would be now?
Well, it's that represents the reduction.
Oh, that represents for that. Okay, perfect.
As far as the number on it.
So Sue, is the wages that you've brought in here overtime wages? Because in Public Works, there is full hours for all of the 6 Public Works 2 people.
Well, that would be their regular hours. I understand how that works is that if they spend a day at the airport on running, that day's worth is charged to get this airport working.
So at some point, we should be able to reduce the Public Works wages by 4183 if that's what is part of your, it's in your budget, plus it's in the Public Works budget.
The only thing that for me at the airport is it's very difficult to predict when and if the storms occur.
Right.
And some years we spend that and then some. And as far as hours, the Public Works are required to be there. And this winter was less in comparison. Other ones than that.
But do you see what I'm saying, though? This is like a duplicate of the hours that are already in Public Works, if they're regular hours.
I would probably forgo that question for Public Works stuff.
Yeah, I meant to ask that last night and but I'm gonna put it in the minutes that I think it's a duplication of hours that are already in the Public Works.
For the summer rec, we very often use them. They have some equipment I don't have for mowing, mowing.
So that's not a duplicate because it's not in the rec budget and your budget at the same time.
In FY26, we have a credit of $8,000. Do you remember what that was all about?
In the current budget,
From wages of last year.
Yeah,
I think my best answer to you tonight is I believe that if I read the record, didn't understand that it was a full time for work done. May not know.
so I'm just looking at the budget. So in FY26, we had a budget of $7,900. We actually spent $11,339, but we had an $8,000 credit. So shows we actually had 4,500 plus.
Yes, and I understand what that was for. They were taking out the contractor fee for me from wages, where in fact it should have come from line 0108. And under the airport manager section. And I brought that to Melissa's attention and she worked with them.
but there's also a credit under that line item too for contractual services. So usually a credit means that it's money coming in. So money's coming in under both lines, both the contractual services and the wages. So is that a grant?
We didn't get any grants for wages.
Okay.
There's not, I don't see credit for contractual services.
In FY 26?
Yeah.
0108?
Yes, so mine shows zero.
Oh, that's the department. I'm sorry. Yes, I see. Okay, so I understand now, I think.
Yeah, they were paying me out of the wrong
Okay.
line. They corrected that at some point through the year.
I guess where I'm going with it, it looks like we've been projecting wages to be somewhere in the 7,000 range, which that's what we have here, just, you know. But we're consistently going over it by $4,000 over the last few years.
Yeah, that,
So we're underestimating what our actual wage is gonna be.
well, and that can occur for, certainly for the public works part, but when we have more storms and, you know, more need for plowing done. I can see that is, would certainly possible.
So
It's kind of,
So public works basically looked at the total number of hours of the year to approve that work, and then they back out what they think they're gonna be using over at the airport.
I don't know how Dennis had done that in the last budget, other than we would discuss what the estimate of hours expected to be used at the airport on the runway. And then I would put that into the budget based on whatever their operating rate is. That would provide us a figure that would be basically, believe, transferred to public works to cover that cost. And it is difficult for us to
Get some sort of outside of the public works.
Yeah, that's why I
If
think
you
it's,
break it up hours throughout this town based on what it's going with it. And we don't know what the total hours are. You know, basically, you look at the employees, number of weeks, hours per week. And that could be public works.
well, it looks like it is. If you take the 6 times 40 times 52, that's 12,480 hours.
When I think about that, you say you have hangar rentals there. Yeah, is that the ones that are close to the pumps? Those?
No, those are privately owned
Okay,
police.
I
The town now owns the land that those sit on.
Yep.
The hangar rentals that Lincoln has, it's the town hangar down near the seaplane base that we have.
because that other one that basically has 20 hangars on it is assessed at zero right now. For building value, which means we're not taxing. If the digital data is right in the
Yeah, they,
in the computer, because a lot of times that digital data is wrong.
that, I understand that each of them has assessed in fact,
And he hates to let them sit in their
all
shit.
along.
Don't flush it
And
for them.
then the airport leases the land in which they sit on. To the office.
Not appropriate.
So
What?
wouldn't that go back to the, oh, it goes back to the, well, no, the airport's owned by the town. How come it doesn't go back to the airport fund?
Goes to the town general.
Okay. So explain to me why Lincoln owns an airport that's incredibly poorly designed, can never be expanded because the clear zones are violated. We spent $13.6 million in capital improvements since 2020. And how many people are really benefiting from which? The rich are the richest of all among us. And we're dragging our base to do that. It should be sold, paid off whatever loans are due, and let private sector develop it to its maximum extent.
Can't do that.
Well, you
We
can,
took FAA grants, so.
yeah, we can pay back the grant. We put
There's
13.6
no
million.
way the town's gonna pay that $50 million in FAA grants.
No, it's gotta be valued at least it's 13.6 because that's what you just put into it, right?
But you have to pay back every dollar that the town has
Yeah.
taken since the 1980s.
What do you, you're keeping a rich man's sport alive for the minute number
But
of
do
people in this town.
But do you
You've
understand?
you've been cheated all along, and isn't it time you open up your eyes and realize what you're doing? Because the thing can never be expanded to commercial, because it's too small for real
I'm
jets.
pretty sure that discussion should be somewhere else, not here.
No, my thing is to put in a motion that it be totally investigated to the nth degree, how you can get out of this. Because we should not be harping our children and grandchildren with something that only the super rich can actually use, especially plowing in the winter. We shouldn't plow it in the wintertime. Well, see, the problem is back to, you gotta keep it open because you took the grants, whatever the grant says. So my motion is that we look into a way to get the town to relieve its the whole thing out of this.
Tell you what,
Out of
is
the-
we ask those questions and there's, unless we want to pay back like $40-50 million.
No, you gotta have a study in your hand that says, not your, you right now, you're just general. I wanna see a study done that shows the whole thing. What the depth is, what the real estate things can really be sold. There's other airports doing great, but they're private sector run. So
You have to pay back every dollar that you took from the FAA.
I don't believe it. There's a time limit. and the
FAA
thing
told us
drops.
that. I was on the council when the FAA told us that.
Yes, you need it in writing, because I've been in the military and I know people tell you shit all the time, and it's not true. When you get to them, say, show me the regulation. The regulation's not
One
there.
of the things for the big grant money is if you no longer do the thing that the grant says.
I'm just telling you, people tell you what they want to say a lot of times. We will ask where the law, where the rule is, it doesn't exist. Because they have hidden agendas. That's why there needs to be a full study to really prove that we are locked into this thing. And I don't know how and who was ever stupid enough to get locked into this, but whoever did this on the way past, really did a just genuine stuff for the people. The richest of the richest are the only people who use the thing. And we should be ashamed of ourselves we let that happen. What's that? Yeah, I was in National Guard. Helicopters can land anywhere.
Get money for that.
Well,
Is that revenue?
it's not in the revenue side when you look at it.
Okay.
I think we dug into that last year. I think the answer is no, because there's so much type of money. It was only one or two that came to commercial use. You can land and take off with no charge.
No charge, yeah.
I checked no lock and hold down, set up the same way. We can do some hang release fees, we can throw money off the fuel. Where all the hangars are in block now, 3.3 acres, I believe.
Yeah.
The town owns that now as part of the airport expansion. The town had to own it. So I think we do have the ability now to charge in a lease fee for the land as well as tax the buildings, but there's not a lot of.
I really.
It would be nice if it was
But
self-sufficient.
anyway, my motion is that we present this to the town council to have them do a full study to see what the cost is to really get out of this, the real cost, not this. Somebody run the complete number. Because we really, I think we need to justify it to people that are gonna be kicked out because we keep on going. At this motion, at this present case, we're gonna be 16% over last year's budget. Right now, that's what's happening right now. Yeah, so
It'd be nice to get a little more commercial use, so. It broke even, people can feel about it.
public sector does nothing well. That's why nothing's happened out there. It is what always happened. They don't try, they're not as ambitious. That's the way it's always been and always will be.
You're familiar with the grant we have?
Well, all I know, I look back on all the 2020s, the 2020, and it's all the capital improvements.
Yeah.
And we told them that
$4 million grant. What's on would expand the runway, for the area of National Guard to do drop and go practices and stuff. But also a much longer runway, which will allow us to have more viable small jets.
Yeah. You're already violating the clear zone, so how can that be? Because you cut out behind Napa to get your clear zone requirement. So I don't see how you can have the runway longer, because the runway is longer. Clear ones. Okay, that's enough. Yeah, Yeah.
It's landlocked, it had to
Exactly.
be moved because the cloud subdivision will not allow.
cutting the
trees to
trees,
be removed.
they're little, yeah, they're not little islands.
You have to maintain instrument.
Yep.
For,
Is there any plans to, like, the hangar with the town owns, there's no public access to that?
yeah,
town
we have,
does have a
we
right
actually have,
build-
we actually have a design plan that is has been submitted that will allow us to get FAA approval for hangar development on that spot. To, what will happen, that design phase will be done this year with construction grants. We also have heard back from some of the projects that we may be looking for. See that development. Build its own. But that, we probably won't know about that. But now that, if we want to give a little bit of history. Back when I first took over. That was just after the runway had been completely rebuilt. That was a $4 million grant that. One of the problems that Lincoln was running into was they were non-compliance with what they wanted. The aircraft was not based on airport property. It's based on private property. So as a result of that, we were given grant money to buy those two pieces of land, the Wayloka piece and that small piece of land that has that small, that old hangar on. And now all of the aircraft that are at Lincoln, except for just a couple, are based aircraft, which puts us into compliance with the FAA rules and allows us to apply for FAA, they call it capital improvement plan, which is a 5-year look into the future as to what the airport is going to work toward as it develops and maintains its function in the aviation system. And now that we're no longer in non-compliance, those things have been starting to happen for us. And each time we improve the airport layout plan, we already have a couple developers that want to build hangars that will provide taxable property for the hangar itself, and then a lease fee for the land that sits on. You know, and it's, you know, obviously will take some time to improve the revenue stream, but that's the manner in which we can do it.
So I make a motion that we only look at the airport, what you have to do to get out of it, and what the projected income for everything to come in, and how we get further into the government. We call it debt, the multi grant, government repays. And the whole economic analysis needs to be done with real numbers and backed by the real code as an attachment to the study. That's the motion.
I did bring an economic, the main aviation branch of PWC had a study done based on 2022 data statewide, and it represents, and there is a document available for the entire study statewide. But they provided me with a snapshot of everything as it relates to the economic impact of it. I also added in a grant assurances. This document in the back basically outlines what Lincoln Airport is required to do. And Town of Lincoln, that's the owner, we have to require the grant assurances in order to maintain any FAA funding or FAA compliance. So it pretty much spells out a lot of what you're asking about, what, what exactly are the rules and what are we required to do in order to stay in compliance.
Is that on your website, is that on the airport website?
Are you passing that out, Stu?
No, but I have 6 copies. I apologize. I don't have quite enough.
I prefer to have it on the website. Is it on the website?
No. I
Can we
don't,
get it on the website?
we'll have to check when Sean does it. But like,
So in a nutshell, with that handout, can you give us the economic benefits of the airport?
in the economic impact of Lincoln Regional based on 2022 data, grand total dollar impacts is $5,311,900. Total income impact, $1,812,600. Total grand total employment impact is 29 jobs tied directly to the airport. Estimated state and local taxes, 225,000.
That's just like this,
Yes,
so what do they constitute, economic impact? What do they constitute?
what do you like, UK flow? But yeah, there's several businesses tied to the airport, UK and East Springs Aviation. And the related jobs that.
So when the business uses the runway, are they charged for the use of that runway?
No,
So if a private plane comes in and flies in and wants to go have dinner in town and goes back, does he get charged?
No.
So when I go to Portland to have dinner, and I park in a parking garage, it costs me $20. What's the difference?
we do have a tie down fee for. We have 4 tie downs available for transiting the aircraft. We do get some of those that come in and will stay for, say they're at camp for a couple of weeks. They will stay they'll tie down at the airport on. And we'll pay the tie down fee. Similar to what the other airports.
So is it because we don't have a fixed base operator? Because we can't determine who's coming and going. We have nobody there to monitor that, and that's why
That-
we can't charge any fees.
That's part of it, yes. The airports that do, they don't charge landing fees, but they do charge ramp fees. So if you were a jet and you were flying into Waterville, and you were going to be there and you need fuel and servicing of the aircraft, they have full-time staff that take care of all that, and there's a charge for each component. If you need ice for the cooler in the jet, that's a fee. If you need fuel, that's a fee. If the lavatory needs to be pumped and serviced, there's a fee for that. We don't have any services. So the only service we have is self-serve fuel, which they pay for. And hangar fee, which we do get some rentals in the summer. That'll come in, and we've already got a couple lined up this summer. They'll pay the monthly fee for access to the town hangar. And
So is the building open, is the airport building open, and available to them in
which one is that? Which building?
There is no town-owned building.
Oh, it's a pilot.
Yeah, there's a pilot building.
That was only open part of the year, but heating system in there is not free property.
the
And asked to renovate so I can operate that building. Usually it's open mid-May to October. And that is available to the. The desk for the computer for
we're providing computer services at the building. Give them the time to.
That's the one we looked at last year, so you only put a furnace in, but it's on the river end of the airport, with no public access.
So you don't charge anybody to use that building. You just have it available for them to use.
Again, that was originally the office. For town at some point, by the airport overall property. And it, it's not suitable for the traffic that comes in and out. They use
You
the
got a
other.
budget of 50, well, last year you had a budget of 5,500, this year you're asking for 9,550. So obviously we're trying to keep it up.
Yeah, the addition there is the addition of $4,000 is for crack sealing of the runway itself. And what I've talked to, we're required to maintain the runway. They did a statewide pavement survey of all the runways and provide a report. Lincoln's in really good shape. It's in the 90th percentile. There are cracks that are starting to occur. I reached out to a couple private contractors. They would, both of them told me, yeah, we'll come and do it, but no less than $5,000 a trip. Well, I found through research and talking with a couple other small airports, they have push behind crack sealers. You can get them for $1,500. You can buy a pallet of the material for $2,000. That'll last multiple years. We could do it ourselves. That's why I put the 4,000. That's less than what I would pay a contractor to come do it for me one time.
I know, but I'm just, the point I'm trying to make is we're spending money and not receiving.
Oh, yeah. That's
all-
obvious.
No, you can't afford it when you have to pay the aviation fuel.
That's obvious.
I think what you're gonna say is because of the grants, we're not gonna be able to resist repair. You just mentioned maintenance. That's probably part of the grant. And
That's one of the grant assurances you're required to
The
maintain.
payment was less than what, 4 years old?
I believe it was done in 2020 or 2021. It was finished. It's about 5 years old. And I think the grant assurance is 5 years old. So-
We just have a grant that ran out in 26. I'm looking at the revenue page and there's that airport development FAA, $313,000. And then we don't have anything on that line item for 27.
Yeah, that's under the capital improvement section, I believe.
It's in the revenues.
That's because there's money coming in from the FAA and the state, and our share is only what we pay in the budget, in the expense side.
So is that money gonna come in for 27?
I think they're all done, right? Because if
Well,
there's no revenue coming in, that,
Yeah,
we assume the project is done.
Well, we have several grants that are in process. We have the Airport Master Plan Grant, which was listed last year in capital expenses. And then a couple of weeks ago, I just got notified of the grant for the design and permitting of for taxiway and hangar development, which may very well be that.
Yeah, there is an expense in the current year budget in the capital for airport development, $363,000.
Yeah, that,
You spent so far almost 61,000.
that there are two active grants. Well, the master plan grant has been awarded and is being paid out as the work is being done on the master plan. The design grant for the taxiway and hangar development was just recently submitted. In fact, I go next Friday to meet with the FAA. That's gonna be a fiscal year 27 grant, I believe. That should be issued, you know, at any period of time in the very near future.
But there's nothing in your request under capital for that grant.
I had given it to Melissa, the amount, I think it was 315,000 something. For that. You know, I understood it was gonna go under the capital.
It seems like we're depending on
Actually,
this.
I take that back. She put in under department request of $10,000
Yeah.
for airport development.
10,000, yeah. The
Yeah,
whole
that-
capital's only
Yeah,
195.
that section is for work on the Leopa property rehabilitation of the drainage system out there. There hasn't been any work done on it for decades. And that was an estimate that the Public Works Director gave me, and Public Works is gonna do the work for the
So we're gonna spend 10,000 in capital, but there's no money coming in under revenue for that reimbursement. So that's all town
that
expense,
portion, yes,
that 10,000?
yes, that portion.
In the budget, the grant that you're talking about for the master plan isn't in either.
It was listed last year, and it's a multi-year grant. We were awarded it last year. And it was put in under the capital expenses
so
last year, but it was gonna take,
300,000 that was listed last year.
there should be one for this year also, anticipated. It hasn't been awarded yet, but it should be awarded soon.
Anything in this year's request other than 10,000.
The 10,000 was work that the town was gonna do in conjunction with it.
And there's no reimbursement for that. That's just our expense.
Yes,
So the additional master plan is not in the capital for FY 27, nor is there any anticipated revenue for FY 27.
yeah, the master plan is a 2-year grant that was awarded in the last budget, and it'll be spent out over the 2-year period of time.
Oh, so there'll be no additional expense other than what was already put in this year's budget, the current year's budget.
For the master plan, but the money has been awarded and it'll be paid out as the work is done. That master plan project takes about 2 years to complete. We've gone through the first phase of it.
So did that go to TIP fund? Is that why we don't see it?
Well, no, I'm
No.
thinking that because it hasn't been spent in this current year budget, if you look at the expense side,
Yep.
the only thing that's spent out of that airport development is up, 60,971.11. So the remaining balance of 302,000 will be put in a reserve account for a grant anticipation account.
And
So you'll spend out of that and then that money will go back into that.
I don't know exactly how that money is moved once it gets there.
Well, that's the fear that we have, that it just gets lost.
It can only be, the way that those grants are paid out is that the consultant that does that work for the airport under the direction of the FAA will do, say, 3 months worth of work. They'll authorize a bill to be sent. That gets sent to the federal Delphi e-invoicing system. I get notified that it is there. I authorize it to be released. The money gets released to the town to pay the consultant.
Well, see, I think that's part of what was in the audit report notes in this, the only audit report that we've recently gotten for 2021. Is that those authorizations weren't properly gone through the proper processes. So nobody knew somebody was authorizing these expenses. And we don't know who, was probably just you, the department manager. But it never went through the finance committee to the council to approve those expenses. Is that why we got that ding on the audit report?
I'm not aware of it.
Okay,
That's
I was,
the treasurer.
well, yeah, so I guess my Where was I going with this? I was going somewhere with it. Lost my track. Okay.
It was brought up that. The survey of the airport. The airport part of that survey accurate, as far as you know. There was some pretty substantial discrepancies on the budding one.
The only thing I know about that is what I've heard through discussion, that the town has to provide the FAA with what they call an airport layout plan. It has to identify what is airport property. And that is developed into a schematic, like an engineer's drawing. It gets reviewed by all the different aspects of the FAA at the regional level, and they approve that. The surveys that were done by a subcontractor working for whoever did it back when it was very first done. And I don't know who that subcontractor was.
There hasn't been.
No. And we just updated our airport layout plan to include the 2 pieces of property that were acquired through the grant system. And then we did a subsequent upgrade of it, getting approval to start building some hangars. So, and every step has to be reviewed and approved before any work can be done.
Oh, there's a point of order. Head motion is still on the floor without a
Yeah.
second.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I'll second the research. I would like to make a motion that,
We already have. a
Wait,
meeting.
wait,
I'm
we
sorry.
gotta vote on this. one.
All right, all those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? So David?
David, you're online?
I'm sorry, I did not hear the motion. Just I'll go along with the majority.
8-2 then. Sounds like you found.
But I think we're still on wait, right?
We're on the vehicle maintenance.
Did we approve the wages?
We can't approve it.
Yeah, but we got.
We can make recommendations.
I think we got double different. I think. the
Yeah, I think there
hours
is.
And the man hours.
Yeah.
For both summer rec and
Yeah,
operation.
I'll make that. I'll put that in the minutes if they check that, but I think.
I think we ought to do this to 0 because they've got the money in the rec and in the public works.
I'll make sure that gets in the minutes.
0030 vehicle maintenance, $2,000 department request. I'll make a motion for the department request.
Second,
All right, discussion?
Can you tell us what this is?
It's for the airport tractor. It's snow blowing and bush hogging.
They have a
Yeah,
track.
yeah, that-
This thing.
So their operators on just.
Well, yes, yeah. I do the bush hogging usually myself. But the snow plowing or the snow blowing deal.
I think there was talk last year, school about a grant coming to update that track and stuff.
That, yeah, that's in the CIP for, I think it's 2030. That's a 1990s vintage John Deere that is in fairly decent shape mechanically. Was purchased by FAA funds. Still functions, it just needs to be serviced regularly. Yeah, a couple of years, 2 years ago, we had a overheated the engine and burned up all the components, and it was rebuilt. Since the rebuild, the mechanic does a full service, usually every spring before it goes out for what's on. Where's the fuel? comes from Public Works.
Looks like it is.
Yes. Under 0040.
May I ask, did I hear correctly? The airport has a brush hog?
Bush hog, yeah,
Bush hog. Is
Yep.
its use limited to the airport?
yes.
Thank you.
I did, let me correct that. I did, bush hog the mill site. You know, the roads down there on my way to the airport last week.
Can the
But I have
town,
to-
can Lincoln use that to quote unquote mow the landfill over by Folsom Pond?
It's not supposed to, it's for airport use only.
Thank you.
That's because the airport, FAA bought it.
Yes,
or they bought it.
1990.
yeah, whenever. It's a nineties vintage tractor. I'd have to do some research to find out what year it is.
Yeah, I think we have research that.
I was still working on that.
We've got a need for it, what's contracting out to have the landfill push on. And this thing is second out.
But then if that breaks, you know, bush hogging up there, then it breaks, you gotta. You know, but they don't fix it with them. So they don't buy new equipment, they don't fix
Okay,
it. So
it starts 2,000 on maintenance. I don't think
they do the maintenance that's budgeted, but if they take it out there to break it, the council's not gonna.
we're
fix it.
automatically paying for services from over.
Well, I believe all the workers, they have their own work.
No,
No.
no, they
that's
contract.
contracted.
According to the paper, the contract. I'll do it differently than we need to know.
I thought Sir maybe did it one year. I thought he said they had.
No,
I didn't see one over there when I went.
no.
But he did say that it was. Right, all those in favor?
I,
All those opposed? Favor or opposed?
Opposed,
No voting.
opposed.
I'm very
You have to vote
irritated.
yes or you have to vote yes or no.
What happened?
Opposed.
Unless you have a conflict of interest, you can abstain.
Oh, okay, then no,
I think there are 2 no's.
I can't be independent voter.
How many do you
Some's
have? 10, so it's 8 to 2. I think they voted yes.
Yeah, so you
Okay.
can take two. All right, 0040 fuel, department requests. 51,877, 877.
the running rate so far this fiscal year is a shade under $45,000. Why?
We've had a reduction in the amount of fuel sold. And we also have pump system is down and we've lost sales as a result of it. We're waiting for the part to come in so that the pump can operate.
Thank you.
I did. I think you will explain it, I'm a little confused still. Okay, so the fuel expense, my question was, I was wondering how the airport was using more fuel than fire and police combined. But this is fuel that we're purchasing to sell to the pumps.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we figure about 8,000 to 8,500 gallons a year. This year, we still, last time I checked, we were still at right around 7,000 gallons in the tank. So the fuel purchase is normally in October, you know, early November perhaps. And, you know, we may not need a load this fall, maybe a little later in the season. Some of it is because of mechanical problems with the pump.
Yeah, I would recommend that we don't do the full 51,000 for the pumps at this. the sale at the pump, because we have money left over in this year's budget that we haven't spent. Plus the revenues are down because like you said, the pumps have not been operable. So,
But but the fuel should be self-sufficient.
Yes,
There's no,
yeah,
you're only spending the
we're,
money that you
Yeah.
take in.
we end up with a surplus that builds over time because I try to purchase when the cost to me is low.
Right.
And then we've maintained a pretty stable price at the pump for the last couple of years. A lot of other airports will, rise and fall with whatever the delivery price is. We try to maintain at least $1 a gallon,
what are you charging right now?
$5.91.
Yeah, that's what they're getting pump everywhere else.
What are they, what is it, what's the price right now to buy it, like, you had to fill it up
I
today?
haven't seen a recent one. I know for a couple of the airports that I've talked to, the delivery price has gone up significantly during, in the last couple of months. My hope is by the time we need a delivery that it'll have leveled off again. We'll be okay.
But I mean, again, just. If we're charging $6, but let's say Monarch is charging $8. Like, shouldn't we be charging $8? Because then that's just, you're building much money to spend back into the budget.
Right now, most of the airports are in 6 to 7.
So you say you're gonna buy 51,000, but revenue's 52,000. You're only gonna make $1,000?
You'd make, if you got an $8,000 delivery, we should be making about $8,000.
Okay, so the revenue is off or the, one of these two sides are off? Oh, no,
There's $1 again.
I mean, you're putting aside enough to replenish the whole
Right.
pumping system, right?
Yeah.
Because that
Yeah.
goes after a while.
Yeah, and we found out the other day when we had gas tech come to the airport to check on the pump that was malfunctioning, that the credit card reader for that you would use for self-serve is no longer in compliance with the security requirements for credit card use. And we are going to have to replace that part of the system. And that's where and I've asked for a quote, I don't have it yet, but if, depending on the price, it would come out of that balance left over. And that's
So
that's
these
where,
pumps have to be inspected by the weights and measure person, correct? Like all
Well,
pumps in.
we have it pump certified once a year. You'll see a line item for that. I believe that is under 0050. Every year they have to come and do pump certification. And they're the ones that notified us that
So we should
that-
be charging more per gallon for fuel to help offset the cost of that certification. Plus any maintenance that you have to do. I think the $1 more a gallon than we're purchasing it for is a little bit shy of what we should be charging.
and that, I mean, we can adjust that. We do have the ability to adjust the cost.
That'd be my recommendation to look at the price, just because. It was before your time, but the whole fuel. Purchase was like, I think we spent $90,000 on it, and the goal was within like 4 years. We were gonna have reimbursed ourselves the 90,000. And like pay for all this, and at $1 a gallon, there's no way that's gonna happen. Like,
And they,
we're originally
the,
gonna do like $3 or $4 a gallon more.
other than the part that it's on order to replace, the system itself is intact and meets the requirements, passes certification. The card reader part is a new upgrade that we just never made or never had done. And we need to address it.
That also, just speaking on that, from the side of cybersecurity side of things, is that that's a huge liability on the PCI compliance because.
Yeah.
If you take the credit card, I mean, I'm sure you guys aren't storing it, it's probably going to whoever the processor is, but.
Yeah, and that, that was, we were notified of that last week and we're waiting on the quote. They can replace it for us. And I've asked them to give me the quote to replace it. And as soon as I get that information, I'll be coming forward and try to get it taken.
Mr. Chair, may I comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
The chair and Ms. Mayo both make good points. There should be a spread between the purchase price of Av fuel and the selling price that covers our costs. And now I'd like to go back to something that I think I heard the airport director say. Do we currently have 7,000 gallons in the tanks?
Yes, I believe it's close to that, yes. I check it once a
And the budget says you're gonna buy 8,500 gallons this year?
I bought, I think 8,000 in the fall. And usually my purchase is in the fall.
So if we have, do we actually use 8,500 gallons during a fiscal year?
We have, yes,
Thank
in
you.
the past, yes.
So
Imagine
why do
most-
we have 7,000 gallons in the tank now?
We have not had traffic into the airport purchasing. The load we got was in, I believe, the end of October, and that was 7,500 gallons, I think. And we can hold between 8,500 and 9,000. So we've sold perhaps at most a couple thousand.
But you also said that the pumps weren't working for a short period of time, or have not been working, so that's part of the problem why you're not selling gas and, the fuel that you normally.
You're
Yeah.
right. And this time of year, it usually gets fairly busy, and I know they're screaming at me regularly that it's not working.
Yeah, the same, because I meant to clear it up.
Right.
There's less people falling in the winter.
So the airport typically sells or dispenses 8,500 gallons during a fiscal year.
We have in the past. Last year,
How price sensitive is that? If aviation fuel is very costly, does that affect the quantity sold?
well, it can. It's one of the things of try to be competitive with other airports. So that you get the traffic coming in for fuel. We've kept the price stable and near what other airports are charging, but a little bit less. And
Again, if the going rate for aviation fuel this year is, for the sake of making a point, $10 a gallon versus $5 a gallon in a prior year, does that affect, and that's the price that goes throughout the region? Does that affect the amount of Av fuel that's moved?
you can, yeah, if you're cheaper than another airport, they'll fly in for your fuel.
No,
I know,
again, $10 is the price across the region. Does that affect the amount of Av fuel that is
What he's asking
sold
is
across
if
the region?
or less people gonna fly.
Oh, yeah, it can. Yeah, it can. Yes, it can. I didn't understand your question.
less than the
Thank you.
price.
And what one are you? comparing? Jet fuel is cheaper than avgas. We sell avgas.
1760 gallons.
What airport is that? At?
Right now.
Because we sell Bangor, a little bit cheaper than Old Town. Last time I flew up in Old Town, it was like 605 or 500. I flew out of Dexter a week ago and it was under $5.
What's your rack price?
That when they deliver.
Yeah.
It was, I think this trip was in the mid four, no, maybe 450 again, then for a while. But that goes up and down almost daily.
Right. Last summer, what was you selling, av gas for?
$5.99.
$5.99, $6.
We
You
kept
say,
it at that figure for quite a while.
and you say you burn it, you sell about 8,500 gallons a year.
Yeah, it would be between 75 and 85.
For some reason, the revenue must be off because it's only showing, if I'm reading this right, revenue so far is only about 30,000, a little over $30,000. As of March 31st, it was 29,523.
Yeah, we still have quite a bit. We haven't sold like much this year as we have.
Right, but you're asking for 52,000 for this coming year, right?
Yeah, that's based on the 8,500 gallons. That's just an estimate. We may not need that much when we come to the next load.
Where I'm going with this is that if you only sell 30,000, you've got a budget of 52,000, then that's 22,000 that went into the general fund. Am I putting that out right?
The last time I had this same conversation with the treasurer, I was advised that the income or revenue from the fuel sales at the airport are in separate account and stays in that particular fund in anticipation of the next purpose. So I may very well have more than that amount built up over time that hasn't been expended yet. It's available.
You're heading right down the road I want you to go. Because if you look at the last 3 years, and I probably feel it farther, we're always underestimating or overestimating the amount of fuel that we think we need. So we're putting $50,000 in the budget, but we're only spending 25, 30,000. So you're accumulating $20,000 a year for, I don't know how long. I don't know where that
Well,
money is.
that's part of the problem is it's in the general fund budget as an expense and as a revenue. So to me, it should not be in the general fund budget at all. If you've got this other account that you have available to spend money out to purchase your fuel and all the fuel sales go back into that, it shouldn't be accounted for in the general fund at all.
You know,
May I cut to the chase? Mr. Perry and Ms. Mayo are both correct. I suggest we pare back the amount of gallons to 7,500 and move on.
I was gonna move that we take the whole 51,000 out of this budget and only budget for the factor and more. Because they have this special fund, they don't need us to fund it through the general fund at all.
I would say maybe they should look at taking 51,000 out and looking at the accounts.
Where is the account? Why
Yeah.
isn't it part of, this discussion tonight?
Because when I was seeing it, like, I mean,
Yeah.
they could have put it in designated funds, or if they do have an account like that. But I was
Yeah.
seeing it, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion that we budget, $900 for this account, 0040.
Could you also make a note that
They-
researching this should go along with what Ted's motion was as far as trying to figure out what we've got there and how much money we're spending.
Yeah, because this says in a nutshell, is they want it to be self-sustaining. So, the fees and rental structure for the facilities and services for the airport, which will make the airport as self-sufficient as possible under the circumstances of the existing particular airport. And then it tells you all the grants that they took that you can't take back the grants as part of that fee.
Well, if it were self-sustaining, then you would be able to get back all of that money that you spent on grants by charging whatever fees you could to get that money back, but you're not doing that.
No,
So it's not self-sustaining.
no, and that's my concern.
Yeah, so.
It's putting us the opposite way. For a very few people.
Was there a second on that?
Not yet,
I'll second.
What was the actual motion? Was it?
to fund the fuel account for $900. We got a second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then investigate, like I said, where this other fund is that supposedly has this balancing act.
Double. All right, 0050, buildings and ground maintenance, department request, 9,000.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Before we move on, was a landing and takeoff fee discussed previously?
I mean,
We did talk about that.
Why can we not use the flight plans filed with the FAA to bill planes that land and take off from Lincoln?
Well, VFR flight doesn't require a flight plan. We would not. A IFR flight plan is what file. You please technically we can file the VFR flight plan. Activity we have in this area between the guard flying the train and planes coming in for service for the business is on site. We find the only airports in Maine, they don't charge landing fees like Portland, Bangor, Lewiston, whatever they charge land fees for services that they provide. And we don't have any full-time staff that would be there to interact with anybody that comes in. And we don't.
Again, if you have the flight plans, you do not need people on the ground.
But he's saying that there is no flight plan for some of the people that,
File flight plans.
yeah, some of the people that come here don't have to file a flight plan.
I would say the majority that you coming out of here.
The majority do file flight plans?
No, do not.
I'm not, I'm not aware of. The IFR traffic we get. Nights.
Does the FAA track those planes?
There is an ADS-B requirement, and my understanding is that it cannot be used for those. There's significant legislation pending before Congress about that. States that have used it to charge fees and.
So a community airport like Lincoln cannot ask the FAA to tell us which planes land and take off from Lincoln.
I'm not aware of, I know I have some data through the guard system, but I don't believe I have the ability to use it for.
I've got friends that fly and I know that they file flight plans.
Yep, that's an instrument flight plan with they're going from point A to point B, they're using their traffic control. Lincoln is an uncontrolled airport. Doesn't require.
But doesn't the FAA track planes to and from Lincoln?
We have the ADS-B system that ADS-B is used as a tracking system. But I'm not aware it can be used for raising money.
Can we request the landings and takeoffs from whoever monitors the planes?
I do not know the answer.
All right, we can move on just from that. 'cause
Thank
that's
you.
gonna be
Thank you.
Council. Yeah, look at, so.
Is there a motion open to increase the price though, to actually increase it? Cause I was thinking of one that maybe increase it temporarily to at least what Orono or Sanford are charging.
I checked last year when this came up, Old Town and Mill Market, we do not charge a fee to land or take off. I remember like last year, PK float pays like 500 a year for commercial use.
Yeah, that's what they call a through the fence agreement. That's a FAA authorized access to the public runway. There are only 3 of those through the fence agreements and 2 commercial and 1 private. That's what Lincoln probably they want. Finding access to the public.
So could we have, add that in the notes just to look at the pricing to,
I will do that, add that to the notes, look at the pricing of fuel.
all right, 0050, Department request 9,550.
Stu, you mentioned that this $4,000 is to purchase a tow behind, crack sealer and then the material that will go in it. I thought our public works department had a crack seal already.
And I talked to the public works director about this particular unit. It's my belief that if I were to purchase it, you know, get materials, so it would now be the system of being able to them also instead of hiring contractors.
Yeah, that would be a good idea, because we need it terribly all over town.
And it's a very simple system that's just it's like a lockdown. It's almost like push control. With a large size, it's configured like that. Very simple to operate. I went down to Waterville, looked at the system, looked at the work and they did the work. Could get them for less than $2,000. The unit itself, a pallet of the material for about $2,000.
Isn't there some liability though for the operator to get this hot stuff on them or to breathe that in as they're operating the crack sealer?
I would probably be doing the airport. Hopefully, one have to do that first.
Okay,
But I had not thought about that. It's a concern.
I think there was a concern when we had one once at the Public Works garage. And there was a concern of workers' comp issues, but as long as somebody's gonna learn how to use it and use it with safety equipment.
I can look at safety that. That's how we can use a respirator. But still, even if we did another $500 respirator,
Right.
it'd still be less to cost than hiring one person. I make a motion for the department request 9,550.
Second it.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None?
Okay,
You with an A,
Yeah.
7-3? Okay.
0063 communications, department requests $1,044. I'll make a motion for department request.
Second it.
Discussion.
We asked last year for a study on motor green, what we actually paid them, right? Didn't we find out we had more and more accounts everywhere?
Council asked last year, but you up to bid.
Right.
Yeah, I thought all of Motor Brain's bills were handled through the finance department and they had quite a large amount in their department. It's supposed to be for all of the computer that's being billed by Motor Brain. That's not the case.
So you find out who has the account, and you'll find out the library has a separate one too, is that correct? There was a few of them, they kept popping up, but we thought early on that we were looking at one.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering if it's in your budget because Melissa's allocating that amount out of the bill for you.
It's been in there. Since I took over, and it's just adjusted yearly for the increase in the cost involved.
But you do have a bill from Consolidated Communications for,
Yeah, that's for the fuel pump system. It comes back to the town office.
I would think with all this Wi-Fi that we wouldn't have to pay for internet. It should be available through T-Mobile.
This internet, along with the certification of fuel island, all this needs to get bundled, and like we mentioned earlier, we need to show that at the end of the year, we paid for the fuel,
Yeah,
we paid for the certification, we paid for the internet.
Yeah.
Everything plus make a profit on top of that.
associated with
We
those
gotta pay off,
pumps.
you mentioned.
Yeah.
$90,000 was what, 5 years ago, something?
I was like. It's like 2017, 2018, I think. Somewhere there.
Yeah, somebody should be doing an accounting of
Right.
what we initially spent on these fuel pumps. What we continue to spend for maintenance and what we're using for fuel, and then what we're getting back in revenue so that. We can see we're making a profit. We're not charging the taxpayers for this service. Okay.
We need a motion for that.
Ms. Mayo makes a good point.
I would amend my motion to do all
Okay, you amend your second too?
Yep.
Include a report that shows all the costs associated with this fuel and that we're generating revenue source. You know, there's a balance there.
that. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? David?
I vote with the majority.
All right, 0067 heating fuel, is that even needed? Because there's no, you say there's no heat, no furnace there?
There is, hot water heater.
Oh, propane, oh, sorry, I didn't even read that part. I make a department request for the $188.
Second.
Discussion.
Again, do you actually get a bill, Sue, or is this something that Melissa's allocated to your department? Because she gets all the bill for propane and she happens to say that that's,
My understanding is, well, when we get a delivery, the bill comes for the.
Okay.
The only thing I'd say is, you're not buying propane for $2.50, you know. People buy. I haven't bought it. Last time I did buy it. was-
well, they haven't spent anything in this year's budget.
If they're buying in bulk, that's. That's what we'll pay for the each year.
You haven't spent any money out of that budget for FY 26.
I don't think so. You had it filled. You had it filled. We'll check it again when we open up this one.
We still pursuing the grants too, the pilot still will not buy the pump, so it's more usable.
Yes. We have actually two grants. One is the airport terminal program grant. That's already been submitted. We've submitted that the last 3 years. We've been denied 2 of the last 3 years. It's under consideration right now. It's in the system. We haven't been notified yet. And then we also have a project that we submitted through congressional discretionary spending. We've been notified that that is going to the Senate Appropriations Committee as part of the project.
Oh, give a call to Senator Collins.
And that's the one that we're probably getting into now. And that'll be the entire project for the taxiway and panel development. And the terminal building. I think that's the one.
The beacon light and everything that's finished, that was last year.
And that helped by doing that, I was able to take out that cost of
Thinking bulbs.
being changing the light.
All right, all those in favor? Opposed? David? All right. 0081 airport liability, department request, 2,250. I make a motion for the department request.
Looking at
Discussion. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? It's not bad.
Silver going out the best price.
I don't think they've been out to bid for a while on that one. But
Then we can ask them.
I imagine it's a specialty one too. We can ask them to go to bid. If you want to put that as part of the motion, George.
Yeah,
It's that cheap.
Yeah, but it's just liability, so. And
0108 contractual services, Department of Defense, 17,500.
I would like to see the 5,000 go away because public works got that built into their budget.
the brush cutting, you mean?
You got the tractor. This way back.
What are we doing for the event fly-in? What does that $500 pay us, give us?
That's used as the promote the equipment. We're trying to get back into the flying schedule we back in the last year. We have one event, possibly two events for this late summer and fall schedule. I use that as helpful. What are we promoting? Yeah. To have people fly in and use it? Yeah, we doing, this year we're gonna schedule. There's a main airport, coffee and donuts, flying circuit. All the airports pick a weekend. With people from around the state will fly in. So we had scheduled one last year, we had some traffic, scheduled one this year in conjunction with people, so they're gonna do a facility tour. And I'm working right now with a representative from the ALPA, which is the aviation and food commission law. So we promote the airport. Hopefully get movies and stuff.
You want to try to,
Uses the airport, maybe it's money. So why are we promoting?
no, you ought to try to schedule something with Sean. Because I know that the town of Greenville has a fly-in and the whole town prospers from this fly-in. So if you could get Sean included in this, like an events coordinator, and have the businesses send shuttles out there for people to come into towns, you know, spend money at the restaurants to do that kind of stuff. That might pay for itself if we could have.
We are trying to go into that. The problem we truly have is we have no focus point for people to, fly in without them. So,
Well, that's why if you had a bus there waiting to get them into town. Might be a good way to,
yeah, we're certainly open minded to find. We have.
For the brush cutting, clearing and maintenance, just what's under maintenance, is there?
We have to be careful with both on the one is the published instrument public. You can't have stuff. Once that growth gets up to a certain point, it impedes on that public approach. It has to be.
Is that public works doing that, or is that contracted out?
That is contracted.
So then we would need that.
Yeah, the company. Travis was still one of them. He has the machines that and get around the idea of doing. Not the way down, and all this stuff. Keep it. What I did, well, it was really bad in the beginning. We were cited for it. Having to cut some trees and drop that one. Now I've gotten rid of 20 million. He can actually do one end 1 year, go do the other end next year, and rotate that and forth. That could be reduced a little bit. I still like to keep some money in there for him if we have areas of problem. I think it would be important to try to maintain that.
Is this the same guy that does the roadside mowing for the town with the same equipment? So we could probably,
It's somebody that public works.
I think it was someone named Cam that does,
Yeah.
Jeremy.
during, yeah.
Yeah, and he did, Intel too, right?
I'll make a motion for 15,500,
Mhm.
cut that 5,000 now.
Mr. Chair, your motion is for $2,500?
No,
No.
15,500, basically the 5,000 would be 2,500 instead.
Thank you.
Someone second that? Yeah.
Oh.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It's great, but we designed the underground building tank out there, so it was 2015, in the summer of 2015. When we did asphalt in November of 2015. So they built it somewhere in the summer fall.
So it's a little over 10 years old. 11 years old.
So I finished. Last year, the county got the land where the thing was, what did we end up charging them for the lead speed for each time they were up? It had been suggested of 100, and that they did, thought that was well.
Yeah, I think it is, there's 24 lots and town lots. What the way they set it up is that Leopa fees the one some fee to the town for all of them. And then the individuals will square up. And it's, I believe it's 2,400.
That used to be the Lincoln Airplane Pilots Association.
Yeah.
So why is the revenues for this year still not what you would anticipate? You just haven't built it out, or
Yeah,
why does it come in, the fees for that?
well, it'll be this time of year. usually.
This was a big April, so hopefully it'll come in. One of the other things that I wanted to mention to the group is that when I was working for the town, they used to have an airplane excise tax, which was abolished because of all of the ability for the airplane users to go to Augusta and lobby against it. But I think that that should be brought back because it is a tax for the
Maintaining the airport.
airport fees. You could use that revenue to help offset some of these costs, but anyway, the airplane users have a great lobby and they got that out of the law, but I think it should be brought back. So I don't know if there's anybody at MMA that agrees with that, but somebody should lobby the legislature to bring back airport excise tax, airplane excise tax.
Hanging on cars, why not planes?
I mean, that's one of the things that the federal government's going to be dealing with electric cars, and basically electric cars are not paying for the highway that they're
Right,
driving.
they're not
Yep.
paying tax at all.
So I think they're right on it. Whether we can come up with something in Augusta, we can look at that.
Well, I think we ought to lobby our representatives to start that.
I had one other thing in my notes too, now that the town owns the land where the hangars are, someone had their own fuel tanks, does our insurance cover that, or are they self-insured?
I think there's one tank there that I'm aware of that has been inspected. And approved, you know.
So we're gonna cover that.
I believe so.
I support Ms. Mayo's and Mr. Perry's motion for an excise tax on airplanes. And in fact, so strongly, I suggest Lincoln become a sanctuary city for common sense. I own a 40 or so year old Grumman square end canoe. I just registered it. The excise tax was $53.
Really? And you put a motor on that? And that's why they charge you excise?
$53 excise tax on probably a 40 or 50-year-old Grumman canoe.
Yeah, but canoes, if you don't put a motor on it, it's only $6, so don't put a motor on it.
Okay, so it's $47 because I put a motor on it.
That's right. That's right. Do you have anything in capital that we need?
Well, the one thing that we had, I believe a $10,000 request for rehabbing
Oh,
and redoing the,
groundwork at the
yeah,
little area.
all of those ditches are pretty much grown in, failed, we need to be rehabilitated.
I thought I heard you say that's gonna be done by the public works.
Yes, yes.
So again, this goes away. Public works got that covered underneath their budget.
I didn't see it anywhere in the budget, but I don't,
He's got total hours. I mean, when we looked at the number of people he had on his crew, he wasn't deducting so many hours to go over and look at the airport.
but what he included in his budget for things that he isn't normally doing as a public works crew is he put in 60,000 for building demo, so where's that money go? I mean, it's not paying for wages.
Like,
So-
I mean, so just the way, again, this is how. It was done previous, so they would budget the 10,000 on this, because then when Public Works does it, like anything like that would come out of this budget to pay Public Works. Now granted, Public Works should be going down if they're doing, because theirs is a union contract, so they're contracted for X amount of hours unless it's overtime, so.
So we remember, we gave them $60,000 extra, not including wages, under their contractual services for demoing property. And now we're gonna give them another 10,000 to help them do the groundwork at the airport. So to me, there's only 6 men over there and they're all getting paid out of wages. So why are we giving them all this extra money when they can only do 40 hours worth of work?
I can only speak to what I told my wife, we had 2 properties taken down and over by Public Works. About $13,000 the cost of taking to Juniper Ridge. The total cost of getting rid of the house. That's the cost they paid to remove the house and put it in the Juniper. About 13,000. 2-story, not large house, each one.
So are you telling us, Stu, that this 10,000 is for materials like gravel?
Because the gravel is listed under buildings, grounds and maintenance.
Okay, so what's the
Yes.
10,000 gonna be for if it's not wages?
Well, that was the figure of the when we discussed the work and the scope of the work and reviewed the property for what needed to be done, that was an estimate from Public Works to me as to what the cost of their equipment, trucks and excavator and bulldozer.
But they've already got this in their budget, so I think,
I mean, I like the idea that it's here, but Public Works should. They should account for it in their wages of, here's the wages. And then
put it in the.
10,000 like from airport here. It's gonna be,
And the other capital improvement would be the FAA grant for the design and permitting of taxiway development. That was split into 2 grants. An AIP grant and an AIG grant, which are acronyms for 2 different pots of money in the federal government. The reason it was split is we had surpluses of like $50,000 from prior years that was not expended, that would expire if we didn't utilize it in this fiscal year. So Hoyle Tanner, the planners, split that into 2 grants to allow us to expend that money before we lost it. And that was in the $315,000 range for the 2 combined, which I gave those figures to Melissa for adding into our capital improvement side of.
So we should have a line item for expense for I guess we can call it the FAA taxiway development AIP/AIG for 315,000.
Yeah, I can,
And then a revenue for that same, or will we have to have our 5% taken off that? 350.
The way they put it in the years past was a total amount. Because 90% is FAA funding, 5% is state aviation.
Right.
DOT
And then
funding.
5% is us.
Right.
So we're not gonna get that revenue from us. So we should take 5% off, and that's the amount we're gonna put in the revenue account.
I don't really know how that was set up. That was outside of my,
So we've got two capital items, if we want to talk about the groundwork. 10,000 for the groundwork, and then 315,000 for the FAA grant taxiway development.
Have they done the vernal pool analysis? There was a shitload of them.
yeah, we're not in the, we're not operating within that floodplain area.
No, it's 250 feet from a vernal pool and you can't do anything.
So that's the part of the permitting process, is that they do a site survey, environmental site survey.
Where you gonna put we did a preliminary a while ago. We did the taxiway between the access road and the runway. But what happened is the culvert that goes to the river is too high. It created a huge pool ever since they built it. And there's a huge amount of vernal pools back there. I've never seen so many in my life. So,
I know that that's one of the steps that they have to take before the FAA would approve anything. Yes, that's part of the permitting process.
Well, it's supposed to be done here right before the frogs. When salmon and frog season. It's, I think you just missed it. No, that's
Way outside my.
anyway, I've never seen so many in my life.
The Forest Service would help us with that. So, state roads can-
No, not be a certain number of feet close to them even. You can't do any development.
Yeah, significant vernal pool. They've never built more than 250 feet from it. When nobody's ever been able to challenge them. And it isn't very much. A puddle created by Skidder could become a significant vernal pool. As long as the salamanders or pollywogs, frogs go in there. And there's more than a certain number. It's not very many. Yeah, it's a significant vernal pool. Gets marked forever, 250 feet. Thou shalt never develop. And I've seen it over and over again.
That's weird because we have property out there and then when the town's looking at buying some. The FAA gave them a quote to fill in all the vernal pools.
Well, yeah,
Well, that's
Yeah.
not the state of.
yeah,
The
the vernal pool is a state
should
government.
Mickey,
Yeah,
Yeah, it was something like $40 not acre, but maybe like square foot or
Yeah.
something.
and
And
there,
you could
there's
do anything you wanted.
weird, they're red flowers with I've never seen such weird flowers that is back there, but I was amazed. The vernal pool is about this deep and there's leaves and you can see every vein in the leaves, the water so crystal clear. And you gotta go there for boots. You cannot go there without boots. It's a
is it
very
near the
impressive.
children's pond?
What's that?
Near the children's pond?
No, there's a road that they bought, Flyway
Yeah.
Road. They wanted to continue that all the way.
Right,
And I walked it to do it, and then I talked to Rich, said, this is total wetland, I mean, it's wetland, as wet as what can be. Yeah. And then that was it,
okay.
it died on the vine, but I think they bought the land, because.
They bought a right away.
Yes,
There's a right of way that cuts
Right across at the end of Flyway Drive and it kind of like goes, I don't know, like a,
yeah,
over to the, where the town hanging.
Yeah.
But that property, other than the right of way, is owned by.
yeah. Well, my family, but yeah.
Okay, so we wanna vote on these two items or no?
Yeah. Someone want to make a motion?
were we on capital? or-
We're on capital first, the 800, the groundwork at Leopa for 10,000.
I make a motion that approve conditionally and have the council look at. Making sure. I don't know how to word it, but the wages are, if they're being paid from Public Works, then we're not raising $10,000 extra in taxes to pay for it, so. However you'd like to write that.
Not wages.
It's ground bucket where?
At the airport. Around near the runway.
Yeah, the one comment I'd have with that is that when the state did the runway pavement survey statewide, because the town now owns that property, those two taxiways were part of that survey. It failed miserably. There are a couple culverts there that really need to be repaired, for them to operate again. My concern as the airport manager is that an aircraft taxiing over one of those bumps has a pop spike, and that destroys the engine. We may be liable for an engine overhaul in an airplane that we really don't want.
Oh, but like I said, and like I said, I want to, the work needs to be done, it's
Yeah,
just,
it's
yeah.
just that it's not wages, it's that it's actually materials rather
Yeah.
than wages.
And certainly into the future, that it would help me if we had a more easier to understand system for articulating those needs to a budget committee.
Yeah.
I still don't fully understand how an FAA grant of say $1,000 gets put in so many different places. It's confusing. Maybe I just need to learn.
Well, especially if you don't get the reports. I'll second that motion.
all those in favor? David? Who's not on? Okay,
So then
Gotcha.
we've got to add this FAA grant for the taxiway development under AIT and AIG for $315,000. Under the expense side, we can cross off airport master plan update and we go that verbiage. And then we'll add 315,000 times 0.05. We'll add 299,250 in the revenue, which is the 90% we get back from the federal government and 5% from the state government. Our share is only the 5%.
I make a motion for that. Any other discussion? All those in favor? 9-0.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Transfer station, is transfer station director here? No?
Did you know we were on tonight?
No.
Well, we gotta wait for her name.
Assuming that he was probably told by someone, but I don't know.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yeah.
Did the transfer station director know he was supposed to be here tonight?
I did. My understanding is everyone has been told. But I haven't made anything saying that they weren't going to.
Good, you sent out email.
Yes, correct.
Well, I guess somebody's gonna have to answer questions, so.
I will do my absolute best. I had intended to, because it was pointed out on Tuesday that I did not introduce myself, so I apologize for that. Not to make an excuse, when I'm in something I'm unfamiliar with, I tend to sit back and watch so I can figure out what's going on. So I don't put my foot in my mouth any more than I've had a tendency to do in the past, just to let you know. So my name is Wade Schaefer, the current interim town manager. And so I'll be here as long as I'm here and we'll go from there. So
Okay.
So
you're welcome. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
I'm gonna say, skip transfer station, because it's gonna be hard to ask questions without director here.
Okay,
Just, but I'd say we do landfill, we'll go to finance, utilities, social
Okay.
service, get through what we can.
Was not email.
No, okay.
so we'll skip transfer. All right. If you could just let him know that we'll be back here, what day is it?
Tuesday,
Next Tuesday, yeah.
Sorry, yes, he was. I don't know if he had, it's on transportation. I don't know if that, if it's underneath the name. Because some motor brand has some people underneath the name, because before underneath the parts.
right,
Isn't it just mowing?
Excuse me?
I mean, all we have in there is just to mow it.
Right,
Yeah.
that's the only thing we spend up there.
so I'll make a motion for the department request $1,500.
Well, the question was, when we're gonna try to mow it internally with. the bush.
According to the public works guy, it's not able, or the cemetery guy said he couldn't use his own mowers. It needs a bush hog.
Yeah.
And according to Stu, you can't use the airport bush hog anywhere but on the
You said
airport.
the tractor can push up.
The bush hog is attached to the tractor.
Yeah,
Ooh, that's how it takes on.
I'm looking. Okay, so not right out.
But what tractor you gonna use? We don't have any other tractor.
Yeah, the tractor to put it. Well, it's any, they all have PTO. Oh, yeah, need a tractor. What's funny? The asphalt crack filler could be shared, but not the tractor.
Well, because that wasn't, the
Right.
tractor was spent with FAA grant, and that's why it has to be dedicated directly to the airport.
But if we buy the,
But if we buy the crack sealer, we can spread it around everywhere.
Well, at this age, it's scrap.
I mean, you could, I don't know, I don't get the
30 years
value of
old.
it, but propose that, I guess. See what the proposed value is and buy it from the FAA. but That might be a couple of your process, as we know, nothing was.
Not only that, but we paid to have a motor job done. I'm not sure, that must have been a couple of years ago, if that was in the budget.
I'm sure that was in the budget.
So that was probably $10,000 difference.
Seem awful one way, that's all I said.
I just think it's a little bit of a roadblock. I think we can load that tractor on a low bed, take it over and mow the landfill, 3 hours later, it's back to you.
Well, let's vote zero that's on this one.
Well, I was gonna ask, how come the money hasn't come out of the project?
Because it's a spring project. It's on spring.
It is hard to know. I'm guessing maybe-
Actually, no, it's usually in the fall. Doesn't he? Yeah.
Haven't come out of last year.
But again,
Usually in August is what it says
Yeah, I
on
was
the,
gonna say, that's when I do mine.
it's
So
not
it
being,
should have already been spent out of the FY 26 budget is what Liz is
Right.
saying.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So
then I'll make a motion to zero that and use the unexpended funds this year.
Second,
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
is Dave back there?
Nope.
Okay. He's gone for the night.
All right, we will move on to finance.
Okay.
oh, I appreciate that. Oh.
This department has two and a little bit of personnel.
hey, when you did your, spreadsheet, revised spreadsheet,
I
you
use,
come up with total burdens in about 1.35.
well,
Point,
it's a lot of that. 1.35.
1.4, probably.
1.1.
1.45 is the total when you add all the benefits.
Oh,
Sure.
yeah, okay, yeah. It's 110,000, it went down a little from the last one. And it's all based on 2080 hours,
Right.
per, that's how That's why it's a weird 63.9, because sometimes you have part-time reports.
Right.
So, well, all of them hit 30 hours of, you guys do full benefits of 30, right? It's on Obamacare, is that 30?
I don't believe so.
I think it's 32.
Yeah.
Yeah, 32 full times.
Is Obama 32? And more than larger than 52? If they vote, which you are larger than 50, larger than 50 full time.
I think between this department and the town clerk's department, there should be a cut in personnel, whether it's 1 or 1.5. But they should be able to share their employees a lot more than
Yeah, because what I had
We
in
have
this
budgeted.
one was 2 people.
yeah, there is 2 people.
Yeah, far to the right, let's see the.
Yeah.
Per department.
Because the town clerk's department has, we've already voted on it, but I just want to mention to you that she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in that department.
We got 5.
Back when I was there, we had 4 total. In both departments.
That's it. Have the computer systems got easier, worse, or what?
They do more.
They do more?
They do more.
Doesn't
So-
seem like that computer systems are updated or something. I've seen what transfer from one account to another. I think it was one by time industrial one software update the computers. I don't know, we should cut this until we get our house in order.
Right, and based on the conversation tonight, and I think the other night when you were talking about things not being put in the right account, it's really hard to see it because it's not, something's not being accounted properly, and I have no idea how the accounting systems work here, but from the standpoint of running a business, I've never had that issue. They've always been able to see, here's what the revenue, here's what the expenses are. If we need to cut something, then we have an accurate way of looking to see what needs to cut based on the revenue coming in. But if revenue is going into a separate account, which seems to be taking place, it makes it very difficult to try to make accurate decisions. The old saying goes, you know, if you don't have good information, you're not going to make good decisions. You've got to have accurate information in order to make accurate decisions.
Well, that's why some of the information that we get as a budget committee is so inadequate. There is such a thing as called the trial balance, which lists all of the general fund accounts, reserve accounts, capital project accounts, and trust funds, all in one report where you can see where all of these extraneous accounts might be. And the other thing that Steve brought up is that we're not getting 3 years worth of data on these budget reports that would also help us in determining whether there's a trend or
I agree.
there's an anomaly in some of
You're
these.
almost, you know, going at least 3 years, sometimes 5 years back, because how do you know where you're going? If you can't look back, and see that. I
Yeah,
agree.
that's real spend.
Right, correct, and
Right.
that's what you need.
Right,
Budget just supposed to tell you, hey, are you right or not? Your actual spending, this is okay, this is what happened, so I'm gonna have you to decrease or increase depending on what revenue I want to make or revenue goals that I've got.
Because maybe you know, is this pulled from is this a Excel spreadsheet or is this pulled from a?
no, this is an
Software.
Excel spreadsheet that somebody, well, Glenn Aho devised it and it's been passed on.
So maybe we should look at an actual,
Yeah, an actual program that you can
Budgeting.
use in Trio. You can use Trio with the budgeting program, but I don't think they use it.
so maybe we should be looking at that because.
And I think it's part of it is they're not trained to do it or they haven't.
Because that was gonna be my
Okay, good.
next question is and again, we don't dictate wages, but 67,246 seems pretty low for a treasurer. That's gonna be. You know,
Well, if you
Hopefully
can
more
get
than
some that has some background in municipal finance, then yeah, it might be low, but
Right, and we're just at the process of trying to find, I haven't even seen any any resume yet for that position, so. I don't even know that anybody's gonna apply yet.
because if nobody applies, and if we're looking at contracting it out to a CPA firm or something. that'll double or triple, so.
Yeah.
The,
You gotta put apples and apples, when you put the burden to it, you're looking at 100,000, which is what CPA budget and plus profit. So you really can't look at the 67, you've gotta put the burden to it.
yes,
Yeah, if you
Which is
multiply
what-
that 67 times the 1.45, then you've got a clear picture of what you can afford to pay a CPA to come in and do it, because you're paying benefits on this.
Yeah, it's about 35,000 per person benefits, so.
Wade, have you seen this document yet?
Does not look familiar, no, sir.
What's Wade, Ralph's last name?
Ralph Lichtenberg.
Listen, we'll get you a copy
I
of
was
it.
gonna say, I thought we had some extra ones.
Yeah.
somewhere.
He took every single line item, but
Okay,
as far back as I think, what, 2000. And so he had graphed where we're going on every single line item. But he had some gaps. He
Yep.
just couldn't get all the information.
okay.
It will be good for you as you're trying to digest all this information. But to look at the history of where we've been and where we're missing. Thank you. Absolutely will.
So nobody wants to do anything with waivers.
Thank you.
Carry on.
All right, 0009 travel expense, department request $298. I make a motion for the department request.
Should not be adjusted for the 72.5.
I think they can use the cruiser now. I don't think this mileage to the bank is gonna be appropriate. They can use the cruiser to go to the bank.
I do know from when Melissa was here, because when she goes at the end, she goes at the end of the day, so when they're closing, she goes to the bank. So on her way, so,
On our way home,
Yeah.
taking the cruiser.
because then it would make sense for her to take a cruiser to go there and then come back and then go home.
Or would they use the bill?
I do think though that's gonna be up a little bit because the IRS rate is, I believe I heard is up to 77 or 78 cents. It's not 65 cents a mile. Is
17.5.
that what it is? Okay, thank you.
It's 332 for that.
All right, I amend my motion to 332. Any other discussion? All in favor? Zero zero one zero professional development, $265. Again, depending on who we get for a treasurer or how that works, that could, it's contracted out, that could go away, but if not, then it's probably gonna need it, so. I would make a motion for the $265 provided at the time the budget voted on if we have applicants or if we know which way we might be going with a treasurer, so. To look at that.
Maybe a bit behind the eight ball there. Does that mean the council is looking at the option of contracting out the treasurer?
Well, I'm just assuming like if you don't get a
don't
applicant,
get
you're gonna have to cut.
Well, true.
You're not
That's
gonna
the
be able-
first I heard of it tonight. That's why I'm asking. That's not even something that I've even been thinking about.
Cause I've been advertising it for now for a month and a half or so,
Okay.
a month.
I didn't realize it was that long.
So if you don't have, I mean,
I don't know where they're advertising. They may not be advertising in the proper places.
Right,
Yeah.
we're advertising in May, we had April, we actually had 2 people that we gave offers to that both applied.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so there
Okay.
was 2 applicants, 2 offers, 2 people declined. And they were, one of them was someone from Vermont, but was a solid applicant, and then one was locally, and, she. So,
You know, they're going from Vermont to trying to do a salary, you know, where they get close.
I don't think so, I don't know. They went through the whole interview, they said that they were gonna move here on their own terms. You know, we told them there was no relocation benefit, or package or anything like that, and they were fine with it. Yeah. And then, Dennis offered them the job and they said. And then we brought in someone locally, because there was 2 applicants that stood out. Right. We brought the one in locally after that, because that first one had municipal experience in Alaska, in a town just like Market.
Wow.
And he was just looking for a remote retirement job. And then the other one that was locally, the other place, that she was at, long-term pay up. And she stayed. So.
Thank you. Sean.
And we are gonna put it on MMA's website. It's not on there right now, but we are gonna be refreshing it. Tomorrow, and also, I'm gonna talk to you about a greater, recruitment.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, Sean.
Yep.
You would be them.
Well, I gotta lock up, so I can't run away if everybody's gone.
All right, we got a motion in a second. All those in favor? And zero.
That one, I think that's a good idea.
We think we should look into, hiring a contract service, like you said, to help clean up this mess and then try to hire a treasurer in. So we don't have more people learning things that are kind of wonky.
I'm wondering, because we don't have figures to the interview, but if one of the reasons that they're turning down the job is because we do have such a mess. You have a good point. We need to get this cleaned up. And then you're probably gonna attract somebody that understand the basic principles, high-level principles.
Absolutely. Another thing I think is, what the last person that walked in and spoke with the ring. Right, they were re-offered a much higher rate at their current job than what we were offering, so they couldn't turn it down.
Well, I do believe that's kind of a problem, getting qualified candidates, but we've got to clean this up.
I mean, with the CPA, you could go over to McDonald's and make about what you make here as an assistant manager there. And what we're asking for a CPA.
Is that the requirement on the application for
I think that's what they're looking for. I don't know if that's what they're, but I know the three people they interviewed were all have CPA, because I heard it on the interview that they said they had.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know any CPA that would do it for less than 150,000, so.
I think we were offering 55, I believe.
Yeah.
55?
60 something.
55 was what was open on the interviews. What Dennis actually did afterwards, I don't know, because I only said what they said on the interview.
I wanna say, treasurer was offered 75.
75.
I can tell you this too, that Dennis and I had a conversation, and I'm not gonna name names, but with a local individual that was very qualified. Very, very qualified to do the job. I don't know where that person is now because of Dennis's call. So I know that Dennis had somebody lined up for the treasurer's role. They agreed on the number, they agreed on everything else. I don't know where that is. So that's PhD. So cool. I think it's funny.
Okay.
This is something I brought up to a couple of the councilmen, talked about the mess, not just in this department, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to be brought up. No, we had trouble, like Dennis was let go when he was, because if he waited another 2 days, then he would have been past the probationary period and yada, yada. What about hiring temps to get some of this mess cleaned up? Because it'll be a lot less money, you don't have to pay benefits, you don't have to fire them, they know it's a temporary, maybe a 6-month job.
Like Robert Half or one of those companies.
No, because, well, I know when I went from temp to full-time, they had to pay like $50,000 for it. You don't wanna be in a situation like that. Like, the accounting firm I was with actually had to buy me from accountants.
Okay.
That's typical role in medical though. If you, like, if I travel for a physical therapy company and someone wants to hire me, they have to sign a contract.
Yeah.
They have to pay them.
But if you hire temps,
It's a headhunter fee.
Right.
Basically.
but if you hire someone on a temporary basis and they understand it's temporary and. You know, it's only gonna be, we'll figure out before, like how many months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever. But you're not paying benefits, you don't have to fire them, get the mess cleaned up.
There are some temporary agencies in Bangor that might have somebody in that position that might come,
But I think we really need to look at credentials. And when you talk temps, temps can have any skill set. You really need someone that.
You need like lots of municipal experience,
Right.
and
Right.
that's where, like, again, if you. Bury
And as
down
I
there.
understand, it's not just this part that needs to be cleaned up. There's, somebody mentioned tonight, might have been you. About the audits, and the first one that came through. There's things, and I have not seen it yet, this is just what was told to me today. That there are things on it from the 21 audit. That have to be changed on how we're accounting for things.
Right.
We don't know that any of those changes have even begun to be processed because we don't have anybody in that place to do that. So that there's multiple areas that, for that one position that need to be worked on. In order for us to get a very clear picture of everything.
If you read the annual report, they talked about that very same thing, because the last audit we had was 2021, something like that. But the tail end, where you get the comments from the auditor.
Yeah.
They do a pretty good job of outlining the direction we need to go in. And so,
So that's something that's gonna need to be implemented, so we can get these things cleaned up.
Something else, Dan, I suppose with the assessing, a lot of towns are having an upside thing, you Ellsworth, in the paper, they were expected to save some 65-70,000 a year, but
Hiring an outside firm to do the assessing.
they don't have no vested interest, they don't have no plans, it's, ways with that, it's in
That's what Ruth told me that we were gonna do. We're finding the properties, but hiring an outside contract to do the actual assessment.
That's for the revaluation.
That's just the revaluation part.
Right.
He's talking
That's
about
revaluation.
continuing every year, hire an outside firm.
Some talk about also going contractually for assessing.
Some are having a refresher every 2 years, but a lot of towns over Belfast. What I've read on it, it seems like it's worked out well.
Working well with my wife, she has a contract.
Is it? Yeah.
I mean, I don't know his last name, Matt, and they're doing what word revaluation. And so they paid him a certain amount, and then you've got 5 guys coming in and they're in a 4-year program to get the whole Dover plus stuff in. So
Sounds like it, the building. That's.
well, they do all of it. Yeah. So I can get the information and provide it to Wade, so he appreciate it. I have no problem with that. And it would be worth it.
Yeah.
It would be helpful to get it set up, especially with Amanda, which is gonna have a training period. So she's got to learn to do it. You can have somebody doing it in the meantime while she's training, so she's not overwhelmed. We can actually be trained properly, and then from that going forward, we're actually we're caught up and ready to go.
You have configurations, you want to put commitment, you look at the maps, you don't transfer to one another. You know, not consistent 20 years out of that.
Yeah.
But you are finding different radars and properties, 3 or 4 different things.
Yeah, the RTI doesn't match the trio and doesn't match. everything else stuff. Got those 2 things down, we'll look into.
Yeah, I definitely think contracting out might be the way to go to at least
Yes.
get started. Like I said, my concern is the cost to contract it out and then hire somebody on top of that after, like, if you do it 3 months, 6 months. I mean, if you're talking like, you could be talking $200,000 or $300,000 once you pay for a contracting firm and then to hire somebody. Will the council be willing to spend the money to?
No, it depends on if the contractor, you can at least cut out 40% of your costs under benefits if the contractor is gonna keep doing the work and he's not gonna ask for 20% increase every year. So you can narrow it down to a 5-year contract. Maybe it would be worth that while.
It didn't sound like.
I was talking about for the treasurer. But yeah, same for same for the assessing.
It does, sounds like they don't have one.
It sounds like we wouldn't need one if we had a contracted service to do it. All right,
So 0011. Professional membership, $60. I will make a motion for the 60 tentative to if we hire a treasurer. Discussion, all those in favor? 0012 advertising improvement.
Do you need that anymore where it goes to a realtor now?
yeah. we
For the
don't-
tax acquired property.
Yeah, we don't need to advertise
That's the
that
one.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they need to do that.
So was that a law change that they?
The state law, they put it out to bid, it has to go through, I think, 3 realtors, so.
Interesting.
Yeah. Those are the commissions for that.
Well,
No,
And then-
you can cap the commission as a town, you can go out to bid for real estate agents and pick the lowest one.
But you
There's
don't,
somebody
make-
roughly
you don't
65.
get money back. So whenever the house sells for, that money that's left over, that wasn't part of the back taxes, goes to the previous land homeowner.
We'll go get to pay septic and water too.
All
Yeah,
that, all
yeah.
back, any taxes, any
Yeah,
liens,
all
any,
utilities.
on the property, but everything that's past that goes back to the previous homeowner.
Well, yeah, they were trying to avoid the conflict of interest where people with some interest were bidding on property and
No, yeah, it has to go through a licensed realtor now.
So, but would, just so I can wrap my head around it. Say it's going up for bid for $10,000 because that's back taxes, back sewer.
It
So
sells.
it goes for 10,000, sells for 10,000 exactly.
Well, it won't sell, it probably won't. Most of those properties are, they're, my wife
I think so, but I mean, if it was sold for 10,000, who pays if the person buying it pays the commission, correct?
the person who buys it is the one that's on the hook for the commission.
Okay,
That'll be part of the sale.
that's why I want to make sure we're not
It
paying.
has to exceed the tax amount that's on lien on foreclosure, so it can't sell it for less than the cost. So if it's 10,000 and closure is 1,000, it has to sell for 11.
They're gonna advertise.
Okay. I mean, that works out better for us. All right, so we can skip that one then.
Or you wanna put zero in?
Yeah,
there?
we'll put 0 in. 0026 postage. Department request 16,594. That was overspent this year. So far. I see they increased it, so
We got some funding from some of them. Both years, FY 25 and also the funding 655 dollars. Offset the over.
fortunately, we'll find out where that's for. So. I guess I'll make a motion for the 16,594. Seems to be, I don't want to say it's exactly on, but. This one's overspent already at end of July, end of April, so. I think that'll be fairly close.
I second it.
Discussion? All those in favor? Right, 0027 consumable supplies. Department request 14,375.
Didn't it say Teddy did? It's on office?
That's
I
what,
think it's for the janitorial supplies, like,
Oh, that's general supplies, not.
Yeah.
Labor. Oh, green.
What's the security for the town office? What's that for?
guess
Isn't that
it's
just the alarm system
Yeah.
out here? Yeah, it's, I don't know what security there is. Like outside of the alarm system and the keypads to get in through the different doors.
We have cameras, but that's remote operating.
I'll say, yeah, it's probably just the fee for having the. But then, like, if
Probably
the alarm goes off and it
375,
calls the dispatch.
Fortunately, talking to two new guys. So we don't have-
We'll learn. I'll make a motion for the department request 14,375.
second it.
Discussion?
Well, they have 6,000 in their account still. And so they-
Yeah, I just don't like I said, without knowing what the current is and. Like, do they buy like at certain times of the year?
Buy in bulk or
from what I gather, they have no storage, so they can't really buy a whole lot in bulk. That's what they said, yeah.
The only storage we have is in that closet and in the bath. There's a little bit of storage next door in the bathroom as well, but not much, so. We buy it as weight, and we used to buy by the pallet or whatnot.
I'm just wondering, 4,000 for cleaning supplies, things like that, that's a lot of money for this.
A lot of windows.
Yeah.
And
A lot
that
of
was,
toilet paper.
I got one window, we don't even have to.
Well, doesn't the clerk's office do the toilet paper and stuff, or not on there?
in
So
FY
this
20,
is 4,000 for cleaning supplies,
The clerk's office?
yeah, for consumables, supplies.
In FY 25, they spent 11,368 and. Today, up to April, it's 9,000, so I'd say they're probably tracking. About 14 with inflation.
No, there's no toilet paper in the clerk's department. Office supplies and programming ballots and food for the election workers.
Maybe $1,000 over or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, they budgeted 15 and again, without. But I'm assuming. Didn't tax bills just go out again, like,
Yeah,
They are.
so it might not have been in this yet, so.
They're in the process of doing it because Alex was over there. Putting the stuff on the back of them yesterday, today.
So that postage or the,
tax bills?
the,
I think it's not like tax bill, I think it's.
Absentee ballots.
Absentee ballots or something, but it's all like everything.
all
has
postage and
expensive.
stuff, yeah.
Well, for me alone, I've put out 9 certified mail. It's $90 just in the month I've been here for violations. I can't charge them violations if I don't send it certified.
You're the one writing up postage.
Clean up the pen.
We have a motion anyway.
Motion in a second.
Yep.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? 9-0. 0030, equipment maintenance. Farm request, $70,974.
This gets back to the same comment we had last year.
Right.
This is scattered all through the budget, so we really don't know how much we're paying Go to Brain or what they're doing. For this townwide budget.
Yeah,
I remember right last year that 2,700 a month was so they're on standby and supposed to come and put it up with that.
SJ Rollins would do the same thing.
And the thing is with Trio, we don't know if they really have everything they need, so the software does what it's supposed to. We don't know that everything's compatible or we have the latest updated programs.
Well, we do use Trio Web. It's online.
Right.
But there are a few modules we don't use.
Right,
Yeah, that we get paid for each module.
right,
We just don't, but we don't have some of them.
right, but is that hurting us? We seem to be in quite a predicament. We're trying to think out of the box and see where we have made mistakes.
Yeah.
Because, I know when I went to do the mapping system 2 years ago, it was ridiculous when the state shut us down.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know if that's enough money for Trio or not. I don't know.
well, the question you need to ask is, do we have the latest version of Trio? And that's probably why some of the systems don't talk to each other.
There's not like it was in the year when it was standalone. Now it's you go into a web page. So it's one Trio. It's not a different version of different
Yeah.
computers. It is the most updated version.
2 years ago, they updated to the
Trio Web.
cloud.
Because as of December this year, Trio standalone won't work anymore. It has to be web based.
So why aren't we using all of the Trio software
For the,
to its
you
capacity?
know, more Sean?
No, I don't know.
It's
I just know that we do indeed have the latest version of Trio, you know, the part of the year we're talking about that's grayed out, we have access to, just you and I don't. because we don't need access to it, but like whoever is like the Trio God. Kind of signs everything in there. The reason why we haven't been using Trio to its utmost capacity, I can't answer that, and I don't think anyone in this room can.
We can dig into it. I mean, I'm more than willing to dive into the technology side of it, but I'm just gonna know I can do it, so.
Well, I think there's a reason why Trio has a certain value and another program has a certain value on a property and, you know, the
Think-
maps
yeah.
have nothing.
Yeah.
They gotta talk to each other at some point.
Well, the maps are ArcGIS, we lease through ArcGIS, I believe. At least the web page that we go to, and it's like ArcGIS Lincoln. So that's how we pull our mapping, so when we pull that up for like zoning and stuff, it's on ArcGIS.
Right, but is GIS
Connected to Trio.
talking to Trio?
No, they don't, they're not the same company. They
Because they typically, like, you want that to happen, you gotta pay for interface and then interface support.
Yeah.
I mean, we do it in healthcare all the time, like you have this software, you need to talk to this one.
Well, ArcGIS is polygon based. You have to create the polygons and what somebody does for you. It doesn't automatically create it, so.
Well, I thought that's what Sewell did. They update our GIS mapping and then that gets updated into Trio.
That's first. You gotta put it in Trio first to create the map and lot, and then it's, I think so. You have to talk with Ruth. She knows it. I don't. Only one I know is what I've talked to her so far and my mom here.
Yeah, Sewell created the tax. You know that. And there's contours in it too. Maps that are.
Well, there's lots and lots
provided.
and lots of layers you can turn on and off.
Right, but if Trio doesn't have that information, they're not gonna be compatible. You're not gonna see all that information. Because when you do go online on the maps, there are things called polygons where there's no information.
Correct. Yeah.
Why?
Don't know.
Right,
In my
right.
field, and when my job, it's very frustrating because I
Right.
see those polygons and they're not there.
Right.
So,
That is a problem because,
And they're wrong.
and they're wrong.
yeah, they're not as updated as they, I don't know how that happens. I'm not privy. to
I know,
that
like,
information.
at least some of my property is like going on like 15 years of still not.
Yeah.
Correct.
But I mean, it's something we can definitely look into. If it's something I can do and they can sign to me, I can do it. But it's, once I have to be trained on everything else before I can take that on.
I know you're dealing with a new subdivision, but like I can't. It's never been broke down. It's still as a 3600 acre block.
Yeah.
You would think as a new subdivision is brought in and approved that it belonged to the town's map, even as they were lots of sold, you could put persons.
And they are getting in there. So I know that the route of somebody doing, we're gonna have found some of them, they're popping up. So they are getting done as they're being sold. It's just not pre-populating when we have a subdivision. We don't go ahead and putting in all the lots that the subdivision says. I think, I'm not 100% sure on that. Because I have random spots that will have a polygon there now, but it isn't one polygon where everything else is a large swath of property.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
One of the other problems is that, sewer engineering has been told to CD&A. And that's been quite a most recent, so I think there's a lot of bits and pieces and loose ends that haven't been connected yet. And I know that Ruth has been trying to get the GIS up to date. It still shows, I've owned property, paid taxes on it for 10 years, it still says it belongs to somebody else.
And say typically the tax counts are correct, but then the map and GIS is not correct. And again,
Trio
they,
is up to date. If you go up Trio, it'll say it. If you go in the ArcGIS, it won't necessarily match that. Where somebody
Well, I
bought.
thought in the TIF budget, there was money budgeted for mapping updates. And so if we're not doing that,
Well,
why are we
she is
budgeting for it?
updating. The stuff is updating. But I think she was doing just the amount of time she had. To put. I'm not sure. But I know she's updated. She's getting me information. I'm updating the new stuff every day that I have to request something, so. I'll bring her to her attention and the next day she's got it fixed, so.
Well, if we got problems with Trio, I think Trio has a support system.
We do, and I now have a login to them and everything, so I fixed that since I've been here, so we have. Customer support, so you just call them or email them or whatever. So I fixed the login for that and all that's taken care of, so that's done.
You mean nobody had
we-
access to Trio before?
We had access, we have management things to the inside, but if you need to like
hop on and want to go through trainings, there's a whole website full of trainings you can get to that are free, but you had to have a customer login. Nobody knew what it was, so I called Brio and got it reset. It's just a matter of finding what it is, and I can fix it, I will. But it takes time.
Thank you.
So, would you write that we see the motor brain?
Yes, I will write that in Motor Brain. We're paying him too much money.
It looks
What I
about,
said. I said we
the monthly looks the same as that one. Saying over and over.
Yeah.
They're 26.75 a month.
Okay, can say that what we're paying is not that.
Yeah, what we're paying for that is we're paying Motor Brain to host the Trio or something like that. We don't pay Trio, we pay Motor Brain, so. But I know that's what we get. I couldn't tell you why, but I know that's what it's.
So we're gonna ask in the minutes that somebody do an accounting of how much we do spend on Motor Brain throughout the whole budget, because it seems like we've got money in this budget, money in this budget, and the other budget, and so.
I think we need an IT. Separate budget for just IT, for the thing, but maybe a lot easier to us.
The other piece, 2 years ago when I met with Motorbrain, like, I mean, there's a lot of, they do some stuff, but there's a lot of like cybersecurity stuff that the town is not doing.
Yeah.
And again, you're talking,
They do all monitor all our emails, they check for any kind of phishing scam come through, they'll stop it before it comes through to us. There's a lot more in the background that they're doing. We also, any kind of software we need, we go through them, they can remote install it. We can't install anything on
Well,
computers.
they're charging you for ransomware protection, $6,000, so it's not for
Yeah.
nothing.
Well, I know what I'm saying is they're doing all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we didn't pay them, then we would have somebody, the first time somebody posts some email, we've got everybody's information on it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, that's way more than whatever we're gonna pay for.
but we should be doing cyber risk assessments, everything like that,
Yes.
because the things like at the airport with
Yeah.
the credit card payer, like all that. would
Even
be-
a credit card payer here at the town office, is anybody checking to make sure that those are secure readers?
Yeah,
Yeah, all that,
I
like,
don't-
training,
that's the other side
all
of
the
the
steps
office, I
that
don't-
trained on it, yeah.
We don't have, if we have credit cards, we have to go through Trio for our side, so we have to get into Trio, that's.
Yeah, but I'm assuming somebody has to have information about what kind of software is on those credit card readers so that you're not gonna be
It-
susceptible to.
And if it's like the old, like kind of like the ones at like the, convenience stores, the ones we have at my work are just sliders, so we store no data, so we have less risk for PCI compliance, so it just transmits it right to the payment processor. Sounds like that might be what it is, but it, again, depends whether,
We don't,
Data
like for us, we don't have anything for credit cards, we take it in, we have to key it in Trio. On this side of the office, obviously they have readers on that, I don't know anything about that side.
because then if you're not PCI compliant, it's sending, depends how many places you're taking credit cards, you could be paying $200 or $300 a month extra if you're not PCI compliant, so.
Right.
I don't know how it works in a municipal setting. Every year, we had to do testing. We had to pay somebody to do a testing on our, for the credit card machines to make sure that we were PCI order, we call it compliant. But so we had to go through, answer a bunch of questions, and then that night, the company would do tests on it, or some, whoever it was, they told us we had to do tests on it, and then the next day there'd be a report saying, yes, we passed, or no, we have to fix these issues. We never stored, we got away from storing credit card information early on in the business. We stored everything in the computers, but as cybercrime was growing and all this stuff, we got away from that. We never stored information. People could make weekly payments or monthly payments on a card. So, but that went through the machine. We never stored the information anymore. It was all stored through the payment
Do we know
process.
that, though, that that's what's happening here?
I don't, that's what I said, I don't know how it works in the municipality, I just know how stringent it was for us. And the last thing we wanted to do was be sued because of some sort of data breach.
Right. Right,
Like, we weren't even supposed to keep. If we had personnel files, we were supposed to have those personnel files double locked, so we had fireproof safe cabinets, sorry, I would say fireproof cabinet. That all of the personnel files were in, or any records that would contain any personal information on anybody. Those are locked up, and then of course, the count of the second lock is our doors, so everything had to be double locked in order to be in compliance, that we were keeping everything as secure as possible.
Usually financial records at all, you have to have an audit trail, so it has to be behind a door with the card, so you can track, like,
Who's been in there?
Who's in and out.
yeah,
Yes, we didn't do that.
that's one of the financial requirements.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if the end knows that answer. Or if the name is no listed before. We don't know.
But I mean, I say all that to say,
72 hours.
I know Motor Brain's giving us a deal on, I mean, definitely go to look for, get quotes and stuff, but Motor Brain does give us quite a
I'm
deal
not
on.
asking you to go to court, I'm just asking, what is the total cost that we're?
Yeah,
paying
I've got that
Motor
on.
From,
How much total do we pay Motor Brain?
Yeah.
Municipal lines.
Well, they're making good money. I mean, it's $7,200 to lease a server. You can buy a whole server. I mean, I just bought 8 terabytes for $250. That's enough to hold everything my company's ever done since 1990.
Mm.
3 times over.
Mm.
That's how big. We were just 4 terabytes, and we had to go up. We just went up to 8 terabytes. That's total backup. So, I mean, a company knows that knows technology can do this, but obviously you don't have anybody with the capability to do that.
There's at least, we're paying for at least. I don't wanna over exaggerate, but you could probably explain this better than I can, because my understanding is that technology field is what you do. Well, but when you go in to see how many drives you've got, it's like, each of those drives that I have access to have, I believe, 3 terabytes of space, and there's probably close to 10 different drives. Now, they each are assigned to different things, but we have at least 30 terabytes, if not more, of storage space, but I don't know what it's all used for. That's just something I happened to stumble upon
It's
today
super cheap.
when I was looking for something else. But
What a terabyte, and this is all solid state.
yeah, oh yeah,
So, yeah.
Say, storage is cheap, server storage is not cheap.
right.
Well, if you have a server on site. You have.
his
a dedicated
server is
server.
in his office, it's over in his building.
Yeah.
That's what he's leasing to us, is piece of his server.
Otherwise, you're gonna hire another person. from the same
Right,
server.
that's the thing, where you gotta look at whether you're hiring your own tech person in-house.
And I,
That's what you're doing, is you're paying for,
Yeah, but you
his-
buy a server and have them put it here and you set it all up.
Yeah, but it's
yeah,
not-
but somebody's gotta monitor it, somebody's
gotta have-
gotta.
you gotta have a server rack, you gotta
Yeah.
have a secured area that only,
Oh, it doesn't produce enough heat for a heat pump anymore. They've got very low.
it's not that, you have to have it secured, like
Yeah.
if you're having. Data
Yeah,
on
if
it,
you
that's
have
what count, it has to
data
be
on
in a
it,
locked
yeah.
room, secured,
Yeah,
and you're gonna, when it's in a small area, you're gonna have to have.
It has to be back fireproof, it has to be fireproof room.
Anyway, you also have to back that up too. I mean, this server gets backed up. So,
Now, ours are backed up, that's part of that, that's part of that too. If somebody deletes something important, a lot of stuff is the Excel file, you delete it, you can lose a lot of information, so it's backed up constantly, probably every night.
Maybe something you could look at too is the town credit card. In the past, it's had the treasurer's name on it. If one of the other departments needed order parts or something, they'd come sign it out. If they needed, they'll have to bring it back. It just doesn't seem to be efficient.
May not be efficient, might be a good,
No, that's just a way to keep people with, or
bring it back with the receipt of what they
there
purchased.
should be a limit on what they could do before getting approved by the department.
My only experience with that is gas card for my employees. We never had a company credit card that employees would use for anything. It was always just a gas card, which then they could get stuff. At the gas station, they had a problem with me cleaning the vehicle, car wash, or whatever.
So when I worked at Target, I had a card, my limitation was $2,000 in a day. If I needed more, I had to then send it up to the bank to get approval for more than that. And then we had to reconcile by the end of the month. All of our receipts and everything and send it in, and it has to match exactly for what the state comes in. Every one of them had a name on it, so whatever purchase we made has my name, last four of my social, it's all put in there, so you can track it.
to have a card for each person if you wanted that, and it does make it easier for each department, well, like each person, what each department
I
head.
didn't think a department head would have it if they had to wear something on. Or something they could set.
It's just, it would be labor saving, because otherwise, like, for us, we can do a reimbursement check request, so then we have to fill out the board. Print off, hand it over to the treasurer has to process it, he's gotta sign it, she's gotta sign it, write a check, bring a check back over. You know, so. Versus just slap, paying the card, and then you have it, and you can type it in PO, and you can be like CEO dash whatever for your PO, and it's already attached to whatever you want.
So why is the transfer station with internet?
That is a good question. I don't know the operation of the transfer station, so we're not.
I
That's
think
how they
it's just for
clock in.
email.
Yeah,
I think just for email.
yeah, email, they clocking in.
Email.
Put it right on the slide.
Huh?
Email what? Yeah,
To get safety updates from the safety person, I don't know, get information from the town manager without traipsing over here, I don't know what they.
He doesn't have a town cell phone, so he doesn't have email on phone, so it's gonna wait. Public Works has a cell phone, I have a cell phone, Sean has a cell phone,
Well, maybe we can get a cell phone for him for $600.
Don, who else has cell?
That's about what it'll cost, is $600, because you're looking at, well, actually, something new might even be more than that. But that's what you'd be looking at, is $600 or something new. So you're down to $600, doesn't know.
So we can't call anybody if there's an emergency?
No, they have a landline.
Yeah, they have a phone.
Oh,
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
like sell, I got.
Yeah, because the phone connects into the,
Yeah,
they call it internet, but it's just a network connection back here. So the-
Oh, to the cloud-based one?
Yeah.
I see.
They have-
Oh, yeah.
I believe,
that's it. Thank you.
I believe it's like a Wi-Fi one there, I believe, so like it's through Motor Brain, so it's just.
I'll know more, I mean, I'll do the safety check thing.
I'll make a motion for the department request of $70,974, that have them look at all the motor rate costs, put those in one area ideally, so.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion?
I would like to add that, when you get a chance to actually talk to some other towns, no, not before, towns that are outside, find out what they're using. Who the company they are using.
Okay, for the technology.
The technology. Just so I know that SJ Rollins is up here, and I personally use them. The business I used to work for. There's a, I'm not gonna say there's a lot of companies, and not all of them are good. But I would reach out to some of those towns and find out what they use, is it good, bad, do they have it?
I'll tell you what really works. This is my internet. This is all the email. This is my office work that never, with air gap, never touches the internet. So nobody can get to what makes my money. This is a throwaway computer at this cost. That's the only way to really protect yourself from what's happening.
yeah.
You have to have a true air gap. You really want to protect the place. That's how you do it. And that's how my company runs. And then I work for upper 500 companies, and they've all been hacked. No matter, and they had all the money. You can't stop it. So I'm just telling you, that's the way. And what it does, there's no internet. Only the people who really need outside email get it. And there's no playing on the internet because they don't have an internet computer. So it really cuts down on this, cyber shopping that everybody knows happens in all. So I'm just telling you, that to me, it's a win-win. Because there is some stuff you still need to do because you're connected on the internet, because the Trio financial thing forces you on that. And we stopped buying a lot of computer programs want you to go to lease space only, which means you gotta be on the internet all the time, and we have this limited in law. We just say we're not gonna do that. Our computers will not touch the internet. The only way. So anyway, I'm just
That's
telling
hard
you
to
what
do
works for us.
with a town of X number of employees to have every employee have their separate computer. And it would be hard to do.
And another engineering firm got that ransomware, it came in through the printer. That's how they got in, just, you know, it was the right, you know, grid wireless to it, and that's how they got in. So. That's. Anyone to point that out?
All those in favor? 0. 0031 equipment purchase, $1,000. Make a motion for department request of $1,000. Second. Discussion. All those in favor? 0. Right, 0039 audit fees, department request $114,000.
Right.
Not cheap.
Can you tell me why we have to have a pre-audit and an audit?
That I don't know. I found out, when I was asking about this yesterday, that Barry Dunn is doing the pre-audit stuff, but they don't actually do the audits. I guess they're making sure that all the information is there, so when we do the audit, we're able to get them done. But I don't understand why. I don't know why you need a pre-audit or you need somebody looking over. I thought the whole idea of an audit was to
Look at the
tell you
work.
what's going on and what you're doing wrong. I have no idea why there's a pre-audit.
I have an idea, but it might not be this way. They hired an out-of-state company to come in and do audit work in the state of Maine, and I have questions about that, whether they're legally licensed to do work in the state of Maine.
Barry Dunn has.
No, not Barry Dunn, but the person who's actually doing the audit.
Oh, okay, that I don't know. Sorry, I'm like Barry Dunn.
And I think that's why they had to have this Barry Dunn do the pre-audit, because it's.
Barry Dunn was hired to expedite the audit process, so they're gathering all the data, getting everything exactly how
Isn't that
that,
what the treasurer's supposed to do?
Well, we don't have.
yeah.
Well, we had a treasurer up until a month ago, so I don't understand.
You want to see every invoice, every.
No, they pick and choose. They say every invoice over $5,000, they want to see.
You just don't know what it is. My wife was like, I thought I had everything ready, and they came in and asked for a whole bunch more than she had the last 3 years.
But that's what the treasurer is there for, is to get that information for the auditor.
Yeah, well, let's keep the clerk, and the treasurer didn't have it, so they put it from clerk to get it, because the treasurer didn't have it down, so. I think it's common issue, is all I can say.
Not when I was doing it. As a treasurer, I had all the work ready for when the auditor came, and if they asked for something special, they gave me an extra day or so to collect the information and then get it to them.
Because
I'm not making any excuses for anybody or any department, okay? All I know is that this is an issue going back to 2021. My suspicion is because of that, again, that's right at the downside whenever all the COVID hysteria started going down. We have policies and things were in place, and so people stopped doing what they used to do, and things started falling behind. That's the only thing I can think of. If I'm not saying it's right, my suspicion is things were kept in the same way once COVID hit, and nothing got back to where it was when they were doing it. Is that wrong? 100%. But my suspicion is that because it happens to be 2021 is where our issue is starting, and things didn't change in 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025, if I'm understanding it correctly. I may not be, and that's why I try to stay quiet and I don't put my mouth, but I mean.
But is the reason why we have to hire Barry Dunn is because the auditor is an out-of-state auditor.
Is that, I don't know if that's why, I don't.
we hired them before we even had the out-of-state auditor. We were trying to get in-state. We couldn't get any, again. I think it's from what Rick had told us before, we could not get any in-state. Nobody would touch us. So
I think it would be appropriate to go out to bid for this.
I know we went out to bid before and we didn't.
I don't know how that works. If we're already in the midst of it, I don't know if we can do that now. Can we?
Again, I don't know.
If you want to give
I think it's
Barry
contract.
Dunn just the current year that he's on and tell him, well, we'll go out to bid for all the other years that were
I would have, I
behind.
guess I'd have to look into it, no more. information. I'm not sure how that works.
I'm guessing that based on the annual report that The last one they've done is 21 and they're working on 22, that's how far behind we are.
Right,
And we got behind because we had some really bad audit firms that did not complete the jobs. And then once you get a year behind, then you're 2 years behind. Then you got one and they're like, oh, yes, we can do it. And then, nope, we quit like halfway through the audit. So
So my theory is wrong then, had nothing to do with COVID, is because other audit firms didn't follow through, is that?
that's what got us behind.
Okay.
And then
Good, I'm glad I'm wrong.
That was.
Turn to page 11.
They had two audits in
On
one
this
year.
report,
Okay, page 211,
no, on page 11,
page 11, okay.
you'll see that the audit fees in 25 jumped from about 60,000 to what they are today.
on
Good,
the,
page 11, yeah.
on the report that Ralph put together.
Well, report.
I actually remember that we signed a multi-year thing.
Yeah.
I think it was a multi-year.
It's just-
contract, and I think it's You're supposed to do that stuff.
Well, I was like, go backwards.
This was the same audit, and the pre-audit stuff was because they requested it or something, I forget exactly.
Okay,
I'm trying to remember meetings.
Our standard is we pay invoice, then you got the regular business checkout, we staple it to the carbon side. So the invoice is with the carbon side, so it's never lost, so, and every check that gets gone. Spreadsheet that everything is brought up, so it's always together.
And I can tell you this.
That would be, that's the way I did it, but I don't know what they did.
Well, in that room is just storage of recent past invoices.
Keep it with the check.
And they're getting, they have invoices in there that are, I think by year.
Yeah, so you wanna keep it with a check you paid, so you complete the full.
I think they do that. They have it all in there because they can just pull out one thing for the audit for, when they ask for like one page, we go in. And grab it. But I don't know exactly. But I do know, I wanna say that the audit is, we paid multiple years ahead of time to get us caught up.
But I think to get pre-audit work and audit is doubling our fees.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it, but again, there has to be a reason why it's being done that way. But I don't know what that is. It seems like no one, I would hope, nobody in their right mind's like, oh, hey, let's just see how much money I can spend. Hopefully that there's a very specific reason why they had to get a pre-audit and then an audit. But I'll have to look into it. I don't have to make sure all your invoices are there. Got them all sorted and all.
It's just a clerical thing. That's all they're doing for you. It's the pre-audit is just clerical.
Right.
They're gathering information that's what you're paying your treasurer for.
Wait, that's Cindy, Cindy would know.
Okay.
I don't know the answer, but she would know.
I agree. Probably the probably paying them in wage.
And if it has to do with the fact that we're hiring an outside of the state of Maine auditor, and it has to have this cohesive connection because he's in state, they're very done, and they're out of state, then maybe that's another reason we need to go out to bid.
Pretty positive, so we already have a contract with the audit firm, though, for multiple years, so. We've already signed a contract, can't go back out to bid, so.
You can always break the contract,
Yeah, if you wanna pay the contract out and then go to bid.
find out what the penalty is.
You have to, contract that anyway.
Like, if we have a contract, pretty
Yeah,
sure we
I
do,
think
but
we
I thought that this was
Check it, 'cause, you know,
3 years
not
ago.
everyone told us after that.
This is double what we should be paying for an audit.
This is less than we should be paying for an audit.
What? No,
Yeah,
Okay, the auditor more than the treasurer?
a town this size, 114,000, that's cheap.
look at the town of North Bucket budget.
I don't think that's a good representation. We can look at that. Not a. Keep somebody else on the one side.
At least they have current audits.
Yeah, how good are they though?
The accuracy though.
Because the audits should be looking at all the internal procedures, they should be.
Are
Talking
they
to every,
doing-
not every employee, but
Are they-
I have no idea, I'm not.
Right, we
I'm not
don't
an
know.
employee, so I don't know.
Mary seems to have some concerns over the audit. She can certainly carry on conversations about that.
But yeah, they should be talking to all the employees, but they should be picking and choosing, and then they, you know. Go through all the procedures and how do you do this, how do you do that? They should be checking everything.
And see, the people that were here are no longer here, so you can't find out if that's what they were doing. Now, all you can do is go forward and say, well, what are you gonna do as a pre-audit firm? And what are you gonna do as an audit firm? Is there any specific details as to what their functions are?
Assuming, I'm not being stupid, I'm assuming. Specific function is to tell us where we've done things, you know, if we're inaccurate somewhere to get those taken care of. So then we can make the corrective procedural changes from that point, you know, for now. From this point going forward, so we're not in this place where we are right now.
We're gonna be in the same place for the 2022 audit.
Well, no, we're gonna be in the same place until the 2025 audit. I understand that, because we're not gonna be able to make the changes until now, which means we're already closing fiscal year 2026, right?
Mhm.
So we're gonna be starting 2027. I don't, at the rate we're going, if I'm wrong, I don't have a lot of hope we're gonna be able to make all the changes in time to clear up 2027 before we have to have that audit. Because I don't know how long this pre-audit's been going on, but if they're only just now getting done if they just got done 2021, and they still have the next 4 or 5 years in which to do, how long is this process gonna take? I have no idea.
We've been told that the 22 is almost done and they've already sent them information to start with 23.
That may be,
Down here at the bottom where it says audit fees, it said this includes 2 years audit and work, so that sounds like that money's for 2 years.
so
If it's a 2-year contract, maybe that would be the end of the contract period, I would think. Yeah,
be good, but it's just.
I got some information, so I just looked over.
That means
Somebody else.
takes half of it.
Hmm?
Somebody else budgeted, no pre-audit
I'm
company.
guessing where
They
they.
just give them the documents, they come and request.
They're paying.
Yeah.
So it might be something we have to do
21,
going forward,
22,
and obviously we have resources. in the
I'm not
next year.
sure.
I think if it's a 2-year contract, at the end of 2 years, and say, see you later, we'll find somebody that we can just do the work here internally.
Yeah.
Give you what you need and move forward in that direction.
In the book, Steve, just below the 0057, it says line.
So in FY 26, which is not complete yet, as you know, we only spent 50,000, we had a budget of 114,000. We got 63,000 left over from that one. The 25 on it, we had a budget of 66,000, and we spent 57,000. So it's probably started last year. 26.
I know we talked about and I can't remember back to one place, but I believe it started. We at least talked about it in 2024. I don't know if it happened in 2024 or.
Maybe we could set aside this 63,000 to help offset this 114.
But it depends if they haven't, like, are they billing it and then it's gonna be paid here in the next 2 months and then.
I'm wondering if the 100, because 114 in FY 26, so is it really 228,000? On 2 years.
Somebody should get the contract and read it. Mhm, mhm. I'm gonna cut this down to 40,000 and then set aside the 63. Wait, that's not gonna make enough, is it?
So look at the historical, we really never spent anything to.
Yeah, that's what it basically what it shows.
When I got on the council in 2016, we were spending $3,000 on it.
Okay, you need to do financials, like your only books closed.
That wasn't, can you imagine, you're not getting much for an audit for $3,000.
Well, they're verifying your checkbook is correct.
That's
The in and out rounds are.
my assumption is they probably just looked at the imbalance. Does it look right? Yes.
I did all the spreadsheets for them.
Yeah.
I did all the work for them. They came in and looked at my work. They would spot check a few or however many they wanted to, 10, 20, I don't care. And then they would go away and come back with the audit report. It wasn't rocket science.
I think isn't the main function that To verify with general public that everything was legit run wise, and nobody just didn't even run, right, yeah. I mean, yeah.
And they're supposed
Well-
to be looking at every account in and out. verifying
They
everything.
had a certain, they had a certain level that they would look at, anything over 1,000 for expenses. Anything over 10,000 for revenues, they scrutinize those accounts quite seriously, but other than that, they made a threshold of what they needed to look at.
I think if you've got state, federal money coming in through grants and stuff.
Oh, yeah, they would look at the grant documents and make sure we followed those documents.
Oh, let's see, a few weeks ago, there was a report. From Bangor, one of the news channels, was talking about the audits in the state. We were talking about, something must have happened around this time because there was dozens of towns where there were 4 or 5 audits. Something happened at this, I don't know if it was all or something changed, but at that point in time, there you see people were found that are 4 or 5 audits behind. So, I don't know. I wasn't into it because I was ordering rent, so they can't do it. But yeah, there must have been something that happened at that time.
I'm gonna make a motion for 51,000 for this line and we'll carry over the 63 from this year's budget.
There's a second,
I'll second it.
any other discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? 8-1.
Who's opposed?
Me.
Demonstrating independence.
Yes, sir.
Do
Yeah.
you use full accounting or use it modified?
Modified.
Yeah, that was it. 0057, lien recording and discharge, $10,000. Looks like this one
Okay.
is, it only has $304 left, so
Yeah, I think this is overstated a little bit, this 10,000.
Says we have 200 outstanding. 490 bucks.
yeah. I'll make a motion for the department request $10,000. Discussion? All those in favor? 0071 insurance, department request $101,409. Yeah, these are all the premiums. They're deductibles. I think they budget for one deductible a year for each thing.
Looks like it's going up about $5,000 or $6,000 in the last year. But that's an up to date quote.
I imagine it's probably right, 5%, so 6%.
How come we don't increase our deductibles?
I think that explained, the very last line there was renewable adjustment, 5%.
Those do seem like low.
Hmm.
I guess the question would be how much do we use it?
Well, that's the other thing. We don't have an actuarial report that shows how many times we've used it. Can we find out from MA if we doubled our deductibles, what the rate would be for this coming year?
And how many times have you used the insurance in the last
Yeah.
fiscal year? Week to previous.
By category, like how many general liability claims, how many commercial property claims, you know, just, you don't want to be specific, just in the categories that we have.
We're overspent this year already, so. Actually, no, so they're not doing the. Okay, so they're not budgeting for the bonds, it's the. Yeah. I'll make a motion for the Department of West with looking into. Increasing our deductibles and then what we've done for the last 3 years for claims.
On that bottom of that page, you can see where they carried forward their FY 26 and 96,580. Then they added the 5% renewal adjustment. That basically makes up the whole thing.
We have a second,
I'll second it.
any other discussion? All those in favor? All right, 0105 deductibles, insurance deductible $2,000.
I make a motion for 2,000.
Second. All those in favor? Thanks, that's it, it's a good spot to stop.
So we finished airport, we got landfill, and we got finance. Oh, wow.
Utilities, social service, personal debt service, transfer station, fire, and EMS.
Yeah, you need to vote on the minutes too, George.
Oh, yes. Make motion to approve the minutes.
Yeah.
Seconded, all those in favor? 5-0.
About 4 people. Two firefighters. The animals, sometimes the very happy people, but then the second. This was happening for a while. The cell raises to the RFA, Roman two. $5,500. And this is all electric. So when you did it, it's R, they need to basically. RAI, your number 2. And if this goes under the knee, goes there, it's 330 pounds. And if the person's going that, and initially it starts the static friction. So 2 people help to get the person 400 pounds, they'll have to take 35 pounds each. It's just initially that you need a little bit more help. And I think that will do what we can, because that was one of the major concerns that Steve was brought it up, for them to look, stop bringing, 4 people to do this. And you need that, this is just preliminary, but we have the next budget.
Oh, yeah.
I recommend you put that in there. What was the cost? It was 5,500 to 1. That's electric. It's got 50 left. For the job. Yeah. I think it's going to use as a policy. I recommend you get 2 plans from the place on planting. If you got a rug, because I think the rug we could start on. But on a hard floor, that's what they showed them. Showing up 9-pound woman. In the sound system.